Sarah, are you ready?
Get on in there.
They will do their report. The chamber.
Okay.
The report that's on there, they will do it.
Okay. Good morning.
There we go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners meeting for December 11th, 2018. Cool, brisk morning, and I thank everybody for being here. We'll begin our meeting by calling up Mike McCauley, the pastor of Bethel Assembly of God. He will deliver our invocation, followed by Buddy Goddard, who will lead us in the pledge. And I'm asking just for a short, brief moment of silence to honor the passing of our 41st president, George H.W. Bush, a true statesman, leader, a gentleman, and a great asset to our county. So if everybody will please stand.
And let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for each and every person that is seated here today. Lord, thank you for each and every mind and each and every person that fills this room. I pray today, Lord, that we would be respectful of each other's opinions and the opinions that come before this board. Only you know what we are here to do today and what we've set out to do. Each of us has ideas and plans and agendas and visions and talents and abilities. Lord, we have time to do the work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end from every beginning. You see every project, every event, every season, and so we look to you today to do this work. Forgive us, Lord, for our pride when we think we know what's best. May we humble ourselves and ask for your guidance. Forgive us, Lord, when we have not looked to you. And let nothing we do here today be in vain. Let even our mistakes, our missteps, our disagreements, and ultimately everything that we do be used for your good and for the good of this community. Strengthen our confidence today in who you are and who you've elected us to be. And set us free from competing ideas and competing agendas and comparisons in order to get the work done effectively and efficiently in unity. Bless this meeting here today and all those who participate. Bless all of those lives who will be affected by every decision in this place, and now ready us to make every moment count. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Please join me to honor our country.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor McCauley, and thank you, Chairman Goddard. Commissioners, on our agenda in front of you, item number 2, improvement of minutes for the November 3rd meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of November 13th regular meeting and October 9th workshop meeting.
Well, then I'll second.
Okay, we got a first by Commissioner Harvey, a second by Commissioner Goddard. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I'd like to recognize a couple of people that are in the audience, Mr. Jim and Shirley Griffin. If you can just wave your hand out there. Ms. Shirley Griffin is the chairman of the Better Place Plan Advisory Board, and Mr. Jim is a member of the Town Council of Pomona Park. So we just thank you for your service. I guess if I can talk just a little bit longer, we won't have to recess for the 9:05 meeting. So anyway, I'd like to recognize Colonel Joe Wells. Joe, stand up. Joe does a fantastic job, and he has been the head man in charge since Sheriff DeLoach has been at the FBI Academy for what, some 10 weeks?
About 11. He graduates
Friday. So anyway, but thank you so much. And I believe I have made it to 9:05. timing's everything, isn't it?
That's right.
So I'd like to recess our regular Board of County Commission meeting, and I'd like to convene our Port Authority meeting. First item, item A, approval of the minutes of the November 13th, 2018 regular meeting.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second it.
Okay, we've got a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
I got a few questions.
Okay. Commissioner Rawls?
We're dealing with the eviction, correct?
Oh, that's,
Is there going to be any further damage done to the building when they remove their equipment? I've not personally been to the building or seen the equipment, but it looks like you've got
is that in the
equipment that
minutes?
would be mounted.
Have you acted on the minutes?
No, let's,
Yeah, no.
Oh,
yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
I'm jumping the gun. Go ahead.
Okay, all right, so we have a first and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the minutes are passed.
I'm biting at the chomp.
yeah, and then we still have the public comment next before we get to those additional two items.
Okay, now we'll move into the public comment portion of our meeting. Are there any individuals wishing to speak on the Port Authority? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion of the meeting, and we'll open it up to our agenda, and there are two addendums.
Mr. Chairman, it looked like you had somebody trying to stand up.
Okay. Mr. Tim? If you would come and give us your address, name and address, and speak clearly into the microphone.
As I recall from Miss Roxanne, that's not necessary, but you all know I'm at 105 Riverside Way in the lovely town of San Mateo, across the river. Should I wait for the things that you've got marked as addendums, or should I go ahead and spit out just a little bit? Because you've got 2 or 3 agenda items on the Port Authority as near as I can tell. Do you want me to go now or wait?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The rental of that building down on the river, and forgive me, I forget what you call it, that the county's paying $10,800 in legal fees, when all it's going to get back from it is $10,000 in earnest money that was put up, as near as I can tell. And yes, you're going to fight for some more money, but to me it's a wonderful illustration of due care and caution that I would urge all of you to participate. The second item is the sale of the Shell building. I did a little bit of research on the buyer, and as near as I can tell, it's a small single, probably 2-plant operation. It's not registered on with stocks and all of that kind of stuff. Yes, it's been around for a while, but if it's been around since the 1970s, I would assume that it'd have a few more dollars than $10,000 to put down. I have personally a little bit of concern as to how much this person's allowed to do before they buy the building from the county, and whether or not the county's going to have to come up and scrape up another $10,800 plus if we have to take it over again. To me, it appears that there are more than a few questions, whether or not there's primarily whether or not your buyer has the wherewithal to carry through on it. $10,000 isn't much to walk away from. That's all.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Tim. Commissioner Turner?
Mr. Tim, I think the difference you're gonna find between the two deals is one was a rental agreement with a security deposit, and the other one is a deposit. If they go forward, they're gonna actually have to write a check and pay for the building if that deal goes forward. So it's not the same type of deposit.
I would hope so, but
It's not.
the county has more than a few single wides on acre lots that are just sitting there that nobody wants, and I'd hate to have us have to take it back over. And I'm just the map that you attached didn't look like really professionally produced. I just urge that y'all make sure that they got their ducks in a row and that they're a legitimate buyer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tim. Okay, our two agenda items on the Port Authority mutual settlement agreement for the building. Stacy Manning, you want to update us on that?
Yes, as directed in the November, by the board in the November meeting, we have negotiated with Castleite to get their remaining personal property and equipment out of the building. The drop dead date for them to do that would be January 4th, and they've agreed to forfeit the $10,000 security deposit executed. They have executed the settlement agreement and the mutual release, and this item before you today is for you to approve that. There'll be some minor work to finalize that, estimating 500, maybe up to 1,000, depending on how much more time is needed to get it completely finalized. But they have agreed to those terms.
Okay. Any questions? I think Commissioner Rawls, you had some concerns or questions?
Yes, I do. So I wasn't here when this was negotiated. The Port Authority, does it have separate counsel besides you, Mr. Manning?
No.
Okay. Did you prepare this eviction?
No.
Okay. Who did?
Neighbors Gibble and Nickerson, outside counsel.
So that is our counsel?
In this matter.
Case. Okay. Who negotiated the lease to begin with on behalf of the Port Authority?
That came from the Economic Development Director of the Chamber.
Okay. Was there any input? Did the Port Authority have anybody working in its behalf as counsel that reviewed the documentation, made recommendations, or anything like
Sure.
that?
Yeah,
Who
absolutely.
was that?
I did.
Okay. I don't have the enabling legislation in front of me, but I believe the legislation requires that the port have its own separate counsel if we're going to use it. Otherwise, the Port Authority is using the resources of the county to get its business completed. So this may not be a discussion at this time, but I just want to put out for public consumption that I think the Port Authority needs to look at hiring its own counsel for matters like this. This is a perfect example of what can go wrong. We're literally losing money here. A building that we could have been making money on, we didn't, and we're actually paying to get out of a bad deal. I personally knew of this company 3 years ago and did not want to do business with them because I could not, when I did my due diligence, I could not find that they had any financial ability to do anything. So what I would do is caution this Port Authority to consider getting a separate counsel on Port Authority matters that can focus just on the Port Authority issues. And then the other question is, when the equipment is removed, will there be any damage to the building as a result of the removal?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't expect there to be. There's nothing that's bolted in. It's a matter of pulling up through the roll-up doors, and they've got the equipment itself is large. I don't know if they have to use a crane to pick it up and pull it out, but there's nothing actually physically attached. The other few things, there's a 55-gallon drum on a pallet, and then there's a couple of large bags of rubber pellets that are on pallets, and there's some various office
In review
things.
with the list of equipment, it says there's 2 extruders, which typically would be fairly large. It sounds like they were making plastics or something.
That was the intent. Yeah, those are the 2 large pieces of equipment that'll have probably, I'm guessing, have to be, a crane, put in through.
I was thinking more like they may have had to put footings underneath them, attach hardware to attach the.
No, they're just sitting in there.
Okay, so it never got installed?
No.
Oh, okay.
And for the record, on your other comment as to the legislative requirement, it's not required that the port have its own legal counsel, although I would highly recommend it.
what it says is we're not supposed to use county resources to conduct our business. And I think at this point, we're using county resources, our county attorney, county manager, to conduct business. We're supposed to be a separate autonomous board, correct?
Correct.
But we're not. We're joined at the hip with our council and our management. So I think that's a discussion that we should take up at a workshop, obviously. But I just wanted to use this is a perfect segue into that, as to what can go wrong when you have when you don't have somebody that's focusing just on the port. And the Port Authority could be a huge money driver for us. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe what we could do to solve Commissioner Rawls' concern about any future damage, could we have somebody on site when they come to get their stuff?
We're going to.
Okay, we're going to? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And County Administrator Suggs, could we maybe put this on a workshop agenda item in maybe January?
Yes, sir, we can do that. I'm making notes now.
Okay. Okay, do we need to take action on this
Yes, sir.
item?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the recommendation actions to approve and authorize the chairman's signature on the mutual settlement agreement and the mutual general release of claims and the PCPA versus Castle Light LLC matter.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Harvey and a second by Commissioner Rawls. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Addendum D, the offer to purchase the property, the building, and 3.25 acres at 7100 PRC Way. I'd ask Brian Bergen, Vice President of Economic Development, to come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Brian Bergen, Vice President of Economic Development for the Putnam County Chamber of Commerce. I think you do have the contract and everything before you. I think I do have a couple housekeeping items or a couple questions from different commissioners regarding a couple different items. One of those was truck traffic, and I think that I did respond to some of you about that, but just to clear that up, I did contact the client, and they are looking at a total of 15 trucks a week to come in and out of the facility. And their preference would be during the planning phase, going through planning, that the county be able to provide some signage so all their trucks come in off of 100 onto 309C. They really don't want anything coming in off the St. John's Way, and all of their drivers will be coming and going will be given those instructions. The second item we had was about water flow and whether there was capacity. And I do have an email from Jonathan Griffith, who is the Public Work Director for the City of Palatka. And for this particular project, there's more than sufficient capacity with the system. I think they're looking at 5.98 gallons per minute is to come out of this facility. And I'll submit this email for the record as well. And I think those were the two questions that were open that I had not resolved for everyone before today.
Okay. Any questions of Brian? Commissioner Rawls?
There's no reverter clause. There's no requirement for this company that is looking. This is simply a purchase. This is not economic development as far as the Port Authority is concerned. This is a simple purchase transaction between the Port Authority and the company, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Are you aware that you left their name in the documents?
Unfortunately, I did.
Right. So
as we were hurrying last night to get it done. Sorry.
And
I would appreciate not revealing that because we still are under statute.
It's in the public record now.
Yeah,
so you
understood.
can unring that bell. So, and I found out when a constituent called me up last night and actually was talking about the eggplant processing, and I thought, how did you know that? And he said, because I researched the company. What he also shared with me, and I was able to look up this morning when I came in and got this, was that he is correct. The company is very small. I cannot find any financial ability for this company whatsoever. When we were meeting the other day, I asked you if this was a cash transaction. You said it was all cash. So that implies that that actually states that there's no mortgage in place.
I believe I told you that they do have financing in place.
Now,
with the bank and
when I
provided
said,
that.
is this a cash deal? You said yes. They're gonna be getting an SBA loan to get the equipment, everything moved down here. So is there going to be a loan on this, or is this a cash deal?
That I don't know. I believe that they are financing it.
I personally would think that as our representative and the only voice that we have for this county, that you would know that ahead of time.
Yeah.
So at this time, I'll make a motion that we table any action on this until we can get this to a workshop and have further discussion.
I will tell you that we have spoken to their bank, and they do have the financing to do the project, and that's where we do
I'll
go
restate
with our
the
due
motion.
diligence.
I'll make a motion that we table this until such a time we can get this to a workshop and have some further discussion, or we can discuss it now, whatever the pleasure of the board is.
Any other questions of Brian?
Motion died for lack of a second.
Okay, the motion, okay,
on the
there's a
site
motion on the floor to table this and to put it on a workshop in the future. Is there a second? Okay, motion dies for lack of second.
If I could continue. On the site plan, it's very confusing to what we're selling. It hash marks out the spec building, but then next to it, it says 4.5 acres.
Right, that's the piece of property that kind of wedges down, and extends to St. John's Avenue. And the reason that we had included that as part of the purchase agreement, they are bringing a gas line into the facility, and that would ease any right-of-ways that they would have to get to do that.
So they're going to have access from St. John's Avenue all the way to the front on, I can't read the name of the road because it's not legible,
PRC Way.
Right. So we're giving them an additional piece of property, not just the spec building property.
That's correct. It's like 3.5 acres. That's that little wedge back there. And a large part of that is taken up by a retention
I
pond.
personally would just like to state that I find this offensive that we're coming in the only meeting in December and we're in a rush to sell this thing. We're gonna take a tremendous loss on the building. We're selling it for probably a quarter, if not, and adding the other property into it, maybe even a sixth of what it's actually worth. But again, not having, in my opinion, good representation for the Putnam County Port Authority, looking out for our best interests, we're now going to be in a hurry to give away a piece of property with no specific performance requirement. This is not economic development. This is a real estate transaction. And as much as it says, Mr. Manning, that we don't have a broker involved, I would respectfully disagree that we do have a broker, and that is the Chamber of Commerce acting as a broker between the Putnam County Port Authority and the now known purchaser.
Mr. Rawls,
Whatever he's done, I'd like.
legally, we don't have broker that we're required to pay. That's the point of that.
Right.
And I'll have to tell you, I take offense at your comments. I represent the Port Authority, and in doing so, I represent the Port Authority according to the direction that the Port Authority gives me.
Right.
I do not decide what the terms are that you are going to agree to or not agree to.
Thank you.
I review the contract and make sure the contract is legally sufficient. And that's it.
I'm sorry.
If you want other things in there, then you're more than happy to make a motion that they be in there.
I'm sorry you take offense to the comments that I'm making, but the truth is, this building has been sitting idle for more than 15 years. We're in a hurry to sell it with no specific performance whatsoever. If I switch my hat over to county commissioner and I start looking at true economic development, how does this guarantee economic development? All it guarantees is that we sell a piece of real estate. There's no specific performance requirement in what I'm looking at right now.
And that's what was brought to, that's what was brought to me, and that's what is in this contract. Again, if you all decide as a board, a group, that you want something different in there, then I will certainly ensure that it gets into that contract. But it's not my job to make decisions on what you all want, because I don't know what that is until you have this meeting, sir.
Right, but we're having this meeting, not at a workshop. This is being brought for the Putnam County Port Authority at a board meeting, not at a workshop. In my estimation, it would have been wiser to bring this to a workshop to have the discussion, to get the air cleared before bringing this for final approval.
And again, that's not my call.
I understand that, and that goes back to my point that we really should have our own attorney representing us in matters like this.
It wouldn't be that attorney's call either.
I understand that, but at least they would review this and we could sit down and discuss it. I got this dropped in my lap yesterday. There was a meeting last week where I was called to discuss the possibility of selling it. So we go from soup to nuts in no time. And I think this is part of the problem that the citizens of Putnam County, and by the way, sir, you might work for 5 people on this board. I work for 73,000 people. So I would just have to say that what we do is important to all the taxpayers. And if we're fixing to take a loss in this building, one of the questions that I asked that was never answered was, how much do we have in this building? What is the value of the new property? This is the first time I'm hearing of this property being sold, the piece that touches St. John's Avenue. I find this offensive, sir. You may find it offensive, but I find this very offensive myself.
Excuse me.
It was in the packet that we presented.
Yeah, it was in the packet. Okay.
It's not clear. There's no clarity in this whatsoever. Calling a dog's tail a leg doesn't make it a leg. And I agree with Mr. Hotelin. The scribbling on a piece of paper, this is not professionally compiled. I have an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that's going to describe probably 40 acres of land on it. That's not prudent, and that's just my opinion.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Turner.
A few things. I don't agree with Mr. Rawls on that we need additional counsel for the Port Authority at this time. Maybe in the future, but not right at this time because we don't have enough stuff going on at this time. Part of what he says I agree with, and that is the part that we don't have any agreement that says that company Eggshell, or whatever you choose to call them this morning, is going to follow through. So I would like to propose that we add to our sales agreement the language that there's a deed restriction on the property for 2 years, and they have to prove that they have invested $3 million in the property within that period of time, or the county has the option to purchase back the property within 90 days unless the party mutually agree to extend that agreement in 2 years. Now, another portion of this that I don't agree with him on is that, Commissioner Rawls, excuse me, is that the Port Authority isn't an economic development engine. A Port Authority, the only reason they exist is for an economic development engine. The reason this building was built in the first place was for an economic development engine. I agree it did sit for 14 years, but it also was built at just about the worst timing in history. Mm-hmm. If I knew what was going to happen, I could have made a lot of changes in my personal life, and it would have made a big difference over the last 14 years. I'm not in a hurry to sell the building. What I am is I'm in a hurry to help with economic development in our county. I think that any time that we have the opportunity to bring in someone and sell them a 14-year-old building that we have in inventory for probably about half of what it's worth, but we set benchmarks for the jobs. We set benchmarks for they've got to put so much investment in the community within the next couple of years, then I think that's good for everybody. So I'm willing to move this forward this morning if the other commissioners are, but with that additional language, I guess it would be a counteroffer to the people that says that we are going to expect a benchmark out of them that within 2 years they put $3 million in, or we get to buy the building back. I think that's the way we protect the public's dollars, because if they haven't done what they said they're going to do in 2 years, they can't, or if they decide in a year, for instance, that they're not coming to Palatka or Putnam County, and I think that is the city of Palatka, at that time they could just go on the market and say, okay, well, we're going to try to sell it now for 1.3 or 1.5 or whatever it is. So I don't see this as any different than what the board has done in the past, which is offer an incentive by selling the building for less. We're not offering them tax incentives, nor am I aware that they have asked for any tax incentives. Right. They seem to think that the building that they're going to invest in this business $5 to $10 million in the next 2 to 3 years, is what I have been told.
Yes.
If that turns out to be the case, then we're going to be able to tax them on those improvements to the building at that time. So I think that I've said many times, if people listen to me, Putnam County doesn't need more jobs. We got plenty of them. We need better paying jobs. And this is one of the first steps in moving us into that direction, that we're not just adding minimum wage jobs. I understand that this business, their median wage is $30,000 a year. I know that's not the best in the whole world, but I know a lot of people that would love a $30,000 a year job right now. So, like I said, I'm willing to move this forward and make a counter offer to these people with that. Do I need to make a motion on that? Oh, you want to talk first? Excuse me, go ahead.
No,
The answer would be yes, but go ahead.
Okay. Commissioner Harvey?
thank you, Commissioner Pickens and Chairman Pickens. Brian, let me say this. Thank you for representing that building out there. And no doubt, I do have the numbers. You brought those to me yesterday. And, you know, we carry not accounts receivable on our Better Place plan, but we all kind of knew what the placeholder number was there. Unfortunately, drilling down into the actual physical numbers was kind of it was a challenge, but you did the best you could.
Yep.
And it looks to be like about a $400,000 difference, you know, but on a 15-year-old building, you know, that's been sitting idle, that we've been begging people to use to help our economy. I think this is a step in the right direction. I kind of disagree, I will say, because I think when I sell you a car and then say, I need you to put money into it to make it better, that's kind of your decision to make. If it's a purchase and we're out of it, it's not my responsibility. I understand where we're going. I understand we'd like to make that company be a partner here in the county. I get that. I get that wholly. But again, when I sell somebody something, I cannot force them to do something. But I'm not opposed to it, I'll say that. I do believe this is a good economic driver. It's going to provide jobs for that area, and the jobs that I heard are not just minimal jobs. There's going to be substantial jobs. So it's going to be good for us. And we're not giving property away. We're selling it. Yes, at a reduced cost, but there's a day that your asset has no value. And let me assure you that this is coming close to being that day. And I believe anything we can do to develop that business park. You know, we bought the property down at 309C and 100 to put signs on both sides and to help protect the park area where people walk at. So that was a good investment there. We can put signs down there, welcome to our business park area. They can come up 309C, access it, and who knows? I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, but we hope that one thing leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another. And just possibly we could see that what we've been wanting to happen. Now, let me go back to the financial part, because that's where I kind of get into it at. Surely there was a lot of construction costs and things that went into that number that we see on our Better Place plan. But over the years, we've got 100 acres out there. We have infrastructure out there. We're going to see, as we sell those parcels, that money coming back to Port Authority.
Right.
So I have no heartburn whatsoever in selling this at a reduced cost in order for us to see jobs and an investment from the company to get back on out of the county paying no taxes to a taxpayer paying taxes and producing jobs. So, Mr. Chairman, those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Goddard?
Yeah, I just want to add in here, because a lot of people don't understand, that is a shell building, which means it has no electric, no plumbing, it has no, it really doesn't have anything there. It's just a shell building. The roof on it is now going on 15 years old. When they come in here, they're going to have to put in the power, which will be substantial. They're going to have to put in the plumbing. They're going to have to create a building, more or less. All we're doing is selling the shell and the property. And from what I understand, this is going to be good economic for our community. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Commissioner Ross?
To Mr. Turner's comment, I didn't say that the Port Authority isn't an economic driver. It is probably the most single powerful entity that we have in this county. It has all the rights of eminent domain, and if used properly, it would be the largest economic driver in this county. Because we've done things in the past like this doesn't mean that we need to continue to do things in the currently in the future. The reason that I'm offended by this proposal is the simple fact that it's put up in less than a week. You want to vote and you want an answer on it, and I think that's just not prudent. I think if prudence was applied here, we would take a slow walk at this, look at this at a workshop, discuss it, get public comments and input. Instead, we come in here at 9 o'clock in the morning and we want to sell a piece of real estate, and that's all we're doing is selling a piece of real estate. There's no guarantee that we're going to have 130 plus jobs that you put in front of me. I can't find anything on the internet regarding this company. I have a lot of doubts about the company itself, to be perfectly honest with you, and the type of employees that they use. But that's a discussion at a different time. I don't think that it's in the public's best interest for these types of transactions to happen behind closed doors without the public's input. That's what I'm saying. I think that we're literally, and right now we're having a discussion about one building, one parking lot that does have power to it. It does have water and sewer and all the infrastructure that's required to operate a 50,000 square foot manufacturing facility of some type. So it's not just a building. On top of that, we've sweetened the deal by adding a piece of real estate that starts at St. John's Avenue. How many feet are on St. John's Avenue, sir?
I don't know.
I don't either, because I can't tell by what I was supplied. But it looks to be fairly large enough, way large enough to put a driveway off of St. John's Avenue and into the back of the facility, which would be a lot more convenient than bringing 15 semis in, going up and turning right into PRC and then turning right again, or coming in K. Larkin Drive up the backside of the airport. Either way, once we sell them the land, we're out of the deal. So I would caution you in the future that you bring this before, at least me, way before, a week before we have to make a decision on it. I got this packet yesterday. Yes, Mr. Manning, I find this offensive. You may not. You may be perfectly fine with being able to get this much information dropped in your lap and being told to make a decision on it. I don't feel comfortable with it. The rest of this board may feel comfortable with it. I don't. What I saw the other day at the presentation did not show me any financial ability for this company. All I heard was they're going to try to get a small business guaranteed loan, and that it was going to be a cash deal on the building. So once we sell the building, they're in a position to turn around and flip the deal. And this is coming from our economic development people that are supposed to be looking out for our best interest.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Turner?
At this time, Mr. Chairman, I think we've all said our piece. I would like to offer a motion that we counteroffer to the people a deed restriction that states that they have 2 years to prove they have spent $3 million from the closing date of the building, have spent $3 million, and if they haven't, then the county has the option to purchase back within 90 days of that date the building for the same amount of money that they paid us for it, unless the parties mutually agree to extend at that time.
And how long would that counteroffer be
For
valid?
1 week. They've got 1 week to come back and answer yes or no.
Okay, we got a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, we got a second by Commissioner Harvey.
I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey has the floor. Whoa. Commissioner Harvey has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The problem I have, again, is does the county want the option of buying that building back? And what's the price of that building at that time? Would it be that now it's going to be $1.7 million because they put $1 million worth of improvements in it?
That's not what the motion stated. The motion stated we could buy it back for what they paid for us for it.
County has the option, so
Buy it back. They can always turn the option down if they don't, if the other party does not do what they say they're gonna do, the county does not have to buy it back. They have the option to buy it back for the same amount of money that they paid for it if they don't come through. I'm just trying to explain the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Turner, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the clarity. I guess the question I have is, well, we don't know at that time if we're all going to be here. There's going to be a different board. But would we even want that building back? We've been trying to sell that building for 15 years now. I mean, that's the bottom line here. Do we want to go put taxpayer money back into something at that time? I see the point, but I want to go back to something that, Mr. Chairman, would you mind if I expound just a little?
You're fine. You got the floor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Back when we were looking at the landfill sale, and I had a call one night, late in the night, from a prominent person outside the county who said, you need to protect people's investment, you know. And I'm like, well, let me draw a parallel here. Think about Walt Disney selling swampland to people, investors in Central Florida. He didn't protect their investment. He sold them a dream, is what he did. Now, would I have invested in Walt Disney's dream? No, I probably wouldn't. A mouse in the middle of a swamp in Central Florida probably would not have spoke my language to me. But you know what? He must have been a great salesman. He had a vision, and that's what capitalism is all about. Somebody has a vision, somebody has a plan, somebody has an idea, and they merge those things together. And I feel my responsibility is to get out of their way and let them do what they're going to do. I don't want any business to have to come before us and say, I want to buy the building across the road or down the street. And I say, well, you've got to provide this or that or else. Let them have their dream. Let them take their chance. Let them have the lump in their throat as a small business owner has. That's my point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls.
Somebody had a dream not too long ago to open up a business at the port and lease a building. And we just went through an eviction procedure. So dreams are one thing, reality is another. And I'm not a dreamer with somebody else's money. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the 73,000 plus or minus people that live in this county. That's what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is setting a pace for the future. If this ship is sailed, that's one thing. But if this is the way we've been doing business and we're just shotgunning things through without any forethought, or consideration of the public or the public's money, we're not talking about a piece of property on PRC Way. We're talking about a piece of property that starts on St. John's Avenue. And that's what I'm just becoming aware of. That's what was put in the packet. That's what's before us today. There was no clarity before this morning. At 9:05, we started the clarity conversation. So we're not just selling a building. We're selling a piece of property that starts at St. John's Avenue. It looks like a fairly large parcel on St. John's Avenue. Yes, it's wedge-shaped, but it looks like there's a few hundred feet on St. John's Avenue, which somebody could easily turn around, cut off later, and sell. I just think that we're making a really rushed decision here without having enough information. Whether there's a reverter clause in it that says that we have the quote-unquote option to purchase it back, whether we want the building back at that point, doesn't matter. But I don't think there's enough information in here. I think whoever put this together has been in a rush to get something to this commission for the sake of getting something to us. I'd like to see us pump the brakes a little bit. And if we do pass this with the amendment, how do we handle that? When do we get to see the amendment? Will it be 5 minutes before the next meeting? Are we going to have time to have a public hearing on it? This is a public piece of property that we're looking to sell. I believe the public should have the opportunity to have a public hearing, have input, and have input in how the decision is made.
Okay, Commissioner Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree that Disney sold to people, but also have to agree that Disney sold them that land for the amount of money that the going market rate was at that time. And I think that's the key difference between then and what we're trying to do today. Today, we're selling them this for less money than what the building is worth. I believe that. And that's part of the incentive that we're going to give to try and get this company to come to town. And I think that the only way that I'm willing to vote for this is if we offer them a clause in there that if they do decide not to come to town in the next 6 months, a year, year and a half, or whatever it is, and that the building, and they can't put the building back on the market without offering it back to us first to buy it back. If the board at that time doesn't want to buy it back and they want to let them go on and try to sell it or whatever, that's a decision to be made at that time. But at least it gives this board an opportunity to, or an option to buy that property back if they want to. If we don't put it in there, there's nothing that can be done. They can basically close on this deal and decide they're not going to come and put it back on the market. And just like Commissioner Rawls said, that they could break out the pieces of property that aren't part of the original lot and resell them. Well, I don't think that that's what I'm trying to do here. I think what I'm trying to do is promote economic development, to get a company to come to town that's going to bring better paying jobs, that's going to be a good member of the community, that's going to pay taxes on the building that haven't had taxes paid on in many years. So, you know, I am prepared to move this forward today if the other commissioners are, but not without putting that clause in there that gives this board the right. They don't have to, but the right or the option to purchase that property back if this deal falls through.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Okay, Brian.
I think what Commissioner Turner has proposed is not unreasonable at all. I think the client would be satisfied with that as well. I think that it does give some level of protection to the county, which we should have in this particular building. It's not like it's a private deal that's being sold out there. This deal is a little bit unique because it is a public piece of property. And like I said, I don't think that clause is unreasonable to add into the contract.
Okay. In that motion, would it also, I understand the building, it would include that acreage that goes out to St. John's Avenue also?
Yes, sir.
It would include that. Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we need to reread that, or is it good?
Okay.
If any of you would like it reread, I've got notes on it. Well, I'll go ahead and do it anyway. So the motion is to accept the sale as presented with the following, or counter with the following conditions: that there be a deed restriction that requires the purchaser to provide the county with proof within 2 years from the date of closing that they have invested $3 million in the building. If they haven't, then the Port Authority would have the option to purchase the property back within 90 days at the $750,000 purchase price, unless that time period is extended by mutual agreement of the parties, and that counteroffer would be valid for 1 week from today. I would say 5 p.m. 1 week from today.
If I might, I don't think the motion ever said approve this. It said amend it.
Well, the motion was
to
counter with these additional terms.
The sale agreement. Is it your intention, Mr. Turner, for us to not see the sale agreement before it goes out in its final form?
As long as that amendment is in there, then it's fine with me. As long as that's the counter offer that needs to be sent back to them. We're going to counter with that language in there. That's the counter. That was my intention.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Harvey?
Just one point of clarification. I understood that it was the total project, not $3 million just in the building. And
no, sir. All they got to do is they have put in $3 million into the building within a 2-year period. Okay. So they claim they're going to, and the packet that was given me the other day, it was presented, and I don't think this is part of the confidential part. If it is, somebody shake their head or something. But they said they were going to put $5 to $10 million worth of assets in this building to bring this business forward.
Correct.
So that if they're if they're starting this process in 2 years and they only have 2 million in, but they're in active engagement in getting this done, I can't imagine this commission would stop them in 2 years from letting them carry on.
Right.
But if in 2 years they haven't gone anywhere and they've made the decision not to come back, that's a different ball game. That gives the commission at that time options.
Right.
So to be clear, if this board votes to approve this, it would be presented to the purchaser with those additional terms. Otherwise, it'll be exactly as you see here. They would have 1 week to accept. If they accept, then that would be a valid agreement. We would move forward.
Right. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? Regular vote, okay? We need a roll call vote on this.
Probably best to have roll call considering the discussion.
Okay, we have a proper motion from Commissioner Turner with a second by Commissioner Harvey. Sarah, would you do a roll call vote by district? Yes.
No.
Yes.
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 Okay, the motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Rawls dissenting. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Chairman, if I could have just a brief minute, if you don't mind, before we close Port Authority. I just want to say that this has been a very spirited conversation for about the last 45 minutes. And, you know, we're moving forward in a direction that staff was asked to present information today. I understand that there is concern about how information is disseminated. We work closely with the Chamber of Commerce, who holds meetings with our prospective investors in Putnam County. They then bring it to the administration, who then schedules one-on-one meetings with each one of the 5 commissioners. We did this last Tuesday. I do understand that it is a quick turnaround and a quick process. However, staff's responsibility to the 5 elected officials is to bring you the information that's presented to us for you to be able to have public discussion and then have this a motion or approval of a particular project. That is staff's responsibility, and for the record, I'd just like to say that staff has done their job today. Mr. Manning's provided information that need to be provided on the legal. Mr. Reynolds and Ms. Papel has provided financial backups for questions that the commissioners had. I just want to say that this was a project that was brought to you in good faith, and I think we've done our job as a staff.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I
County
could.
Administrator, wait a minute. Commissioner Goddard?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again to the staff, because this was tricky, and any questions that I had were answered, and I appreciate it. I really do.
Okay. Commissioner Rawls?
I would think that the staff doesn't take anything that I say is an assault on them, because it's not. My heartburn is that we're blurring lines between 2 completely autonomous boards, the Putnam County Port Authority and the Board of County Commissioners of Putnam County, 2 completely different boards. And even when we were talking the other day with Mr. Bergen, I made the comment, I signed the non-disclosure agreement as County Commissioner District 2, but I should have signed it as a Port Authority member, but nobody asked me to. And Dana Jones said, well, you're all the same, but we're not. We are literally not all the same. And I personally would like to see this board conduct itself as an autonomous board, knowing that we have the opportunity to do some awesome things in this county that the Board of County Commissioners cannot do. But it's going to take this board and staff and everyone else reading the enabling legislation, understanding what our authorities and our powers are, and taking advantage of them so we can start making money and producing income for our county. I think that we are beholden to our constituents, all 73,000 of them. And in my opinion, what happened today does not display good faith on our part to them that we have their best interest at heart. We took a 7-day, actually less than 7 days, because I met at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday. In less than 7 days, we take this thing from soup to nuts with very little clarity whatsoever. And I want to make this clear. I had a non-disclosure agreement put in front of me. I was told that I could look at, I had very limited amount of information to put in front of me. Never told that we're going to make a decision on this next week. They just said this would come before the board, and here we are less than a week later, and we just sold a piece of property, not just a building, a piece of property. And this thing has a lot of different areas that could blow up in our face. So I don't even, the public's not even aware of what's being proposed to go in this building. And I think when they find out, they may not be happy with it. So I think going forward, we really should Mr. Manning's correct. We should have our own council. And I'm not sure that the Putnam County Chamber of Commerce works for the Putnam County Port Authority. I don't know how that relationship works. All the lines are getting blurred. I personally would like to see some clarity and see these two separate boards acting separately.
Okay, we're going to move that to a workshop, and we'll discuss that. Commissioner Turner?
Yes, I think that we are going to move it to a workshop, as you asked to do earlier. And personally, I'd be more than welcome for you to bring specific ideas on ways to improve our port authority other than to give it away to somebody else. But any particulars, I'm more than welcome.
We're not giving our port authority away. That's what I'm trying not to do.
I'm more than welcome any suggestions. We've been trying to work on it some throughout the year, and we've came up with a few as we've gone, such as possibly dredging is where we can bring some jacks forward. We've been hunting for some money to try to get that done, but any suggestions you have, I would be open to listening to on ways to make our port better.
I think we need to spend more time focusing on our port as a port authority, not just having brief discussions about them. I did go to the Jacksonville Port Authority. I talked to their legislative affairs lady, and the first question I asked her was, have you ever worked with Putnam County Port Authority? And her answer was, I didn't know you had a port authority. This conversation took place last
And this is for discussion for another day. We're just beating ourselves up here. I truly believe that this commission is working for the best of the Putnam County. I appreciate everybody's comments, but we will move this to a workshop in the near future. Hopefully it'll be the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday in January. And maybe we can dedicate the whole workshop to it, not just 30 minutes, maybe the whole 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever we need. So is there any other business to come before the Port Authority?
One last thing, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Turner?
Depending on how much time that y'all think this may take, we may want to move it to the third Tuesday, and because we'll have all day then to deal with that and other issues. So it may be that we need a little more. Sounds like there may be a very robust discussion when we get there, so may need a little more time.
Mr. Chairman, I'll get that scheduled for the third Tuesday of January, beginning at 9 a.m.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other business to come before the Port Authority? Okay, we'll adjourn the Port Authority, and we'll reconvene our regular county commission meeting. You want to take a 5-minute break? Are you good?
Okay.
Okay, we will not break. Moving down to agenda item number 4, which is recognition. I'd like to ask Colonel Joe Wells to come up, and he has some to honor some of his staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Honorable Clerk of Courts, county staff, public, and certainly the members of the Sheriff's Office that have joined us here today. We certainly appreciate the Commission allowing us a few minutes to publicly recognize a few of our folks, as we do on a regular basis when something comes to light that just demonstrates the above and beyond attitude and professionalism that our people perform on a daily basis. So this time I'm going to ask 2 of the members of our corrections team to come forward with me. They are Corporals Laura Jones and Merrill Greco. If you'll step forward with me real quick, please, ladies. Again, I'll be brief, but just want to make an opening statement that it's oftentimes our law enforcement team, those deputy sheriffs that perform the law enforcement function in the field, that are seen most by the public, and oftentimes because of their positions, they receive a lot of the recognition. But lest we never forget a very talented, professional, and exceptional group of people that serve the citizens of Putnam County, and those are our corrections deputies, for which I have gained a tremendous amount of respect for over the last few years as I've had the opportunity to experience more about what goes on back in there. So, on any given day, they serve a population of an average of 350 to 380 inmates, and they are responsible for the care, custody, control, and yes, rehabilitation of those inmates. And they do so with exceptionally well every day, but once in a while, an event takes place that just deserves a little extra recognition, and that's what we're here to do today. So on September 2nd, 2018, at approximately 9 p.m. in the evening, Corporal Greco, along with Corporal Jones, responded to an assistance call regarding one of our inmates that was experiencing an urgent medical emergency. Upon their arrival in cell Golf 130, both of these ladies observed an inmate that was obviously choking and was no longer breathing. Their assessment of the inmate determined that immediate life-saving measures were necessary. Both of these women performed together and as a team and performed the Heimlich maneuver, finger sweep procedures, and other life-saving measures to allow the inmate to begin breathing on his own. Medical evaluation afterwards it was determined that death was imminent for this inmate. He had been without oxygen for a period of time where there was no time to waste, and that's exactly what these two ladies did, is wasting no time in saving the life of an inmate within the Putnam County Jail. You know, one of the things I admire most about our corrections professionals is although these folks are inmates, we never know what in life led them to be in this position, and they certainly are still human beings, someone's family, someone's sons, someone's fathers and brothers. So I certainly appreciate the fact that they gave it their all to save the life of a fellow human being inside the Putnam County Jail. So based on their actions, Sheriff Deloach has agreed that these two professionals within our Corrections Department are hereby awarded the Life-Saving Medal of the Putnam County Sheriff's Office. Congratulations, ladies.
Pictures with them.
Allison, real quick. And you want to do with all the commissioners?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me get Joe in between. Oh, we'll go up there.
Let's see, it's your second life saving.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Christmas tie show.
Yeah, I don't want to cover those. We got. Thank you.
Okay.
Super. There you go.
There you go.
There. As I go, one more I gotta get in here. I know, no respect. Yeah, Bill, go that way. All right, 1, 2, 3, look at me. Everybody get their pictures? All right.
Amanda, sit right here.
Oh, over here.
Thank you.
Good job. Congratulations. Congratulations, sir.
Yes, sir.
Really went there, right?
Thank you, Colonel Wells.
About fell down on the floor.
Our next item, I'd like to call Press Tompkins up. We have some recognition of some of the Public Works employees.
34 years. Holy crap.
Good morning, gentlemen. Appreciate this opportunity. I'd like to call up Michael Woods, Robert Johnson, and Richard Galbraith.
Press, before you get started, isn't there any way you could talk them into staying a little longer?
I have tried.
Years?
You're not ready to watch TV, so you can come on.
Press, I was going to ask you if I could get Robert Johnson's personal cell phone number so I can call him.
He won't even give that to me.
Or tell me where he lives so I can drive by and take him to lunch.
But these three gentlemen represent 95 years of experience in Putnam County Public Works.
Wow.
And it's going to be a tremendous loss to us. Rick's been with the county for a total of 48 years.
Wow.
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 He was with us when we had our own asphalt plant. He retired and then came back to work. Mike Woods left us for a little while, and then he came back to work with us. Robert Johnson's been with us for 35 years. He's seen a lot going on in this county, but their experience and their historical knowledge is invaluable to us. And I've talked to Robert. I said, please give me your phone number. But the good thing is I know where he lives. So I can go out. But these gentlemen have done an outstanding job for the county. I can't say enough about them. And this small token of appreciation we're giving them today doesn't pale for what they've done for the county. And we are sorely going to miss them. And that's a great privilege for me to be here and to be able to give this award to them and to wish them good luck in their next endeavors, and Godspeed to them both, to all three of them. And if y'all have any comments, I know they would appreciate it now.
I do have a comment. I want to thank all three of you. We have so many great employees in the county, and I just appreciate your service to the county and Public Works. And I think my commissioners will agree with me that a lot of the calls that we get, complaints, have to do with what Public Works takes care of. And so your commitment to the county and your expertise, it makes our job a lot easier. And we're definitely going to miss you and just really appreciate your service to Putnam County.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other comments?
Well said.
This is picture time.
Stand up here or down there?
You're right.
Congratulations.
I'm gonna peek over his shoulder.
No, you're the honoree.
You couldn't even do that.
You'd have to look under his arm.
Looks like we got it.
Congratulations, thank you for your service.
Absolutely. Congratulations.
How did you do this ahead of me?
What do you think?
I don't know when I'm retiring yet.
48 years. If you ask him on day one how long he would have been there, he would have never said that's a half a decade.
That's 2 careers.
He'll do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, for a long
Thank you, Press. Okay, our next item, Mary Garcia. Would you come forward? Has a presentation from SWAT.
We're trying to see if we can get the presentation loaded or not.
Okay.
Like, you want to do the next person and we'll come up third?
We go to item A then?
Yeah, I guess we could go to item, okay, Mary, we'll do that. We'll go to item A, under presentations. Fall County Commission update from FDOT. Stephen Browning and Jamie Driggers, would you come forward and welcome?
So good morning, I'm Stephen Browning and also have Jamie Driggers here with me today from the Florida Department of Transportation. We kind of want to walk through the tentative work program with you from fiscal years 20 through 24.
Okay.
Give you just a minute while we receive his handout. Typically in the past, we come to you guys in the spring and the fall, but we kind of mixed things up a little this year, and we actually met with staff in the spring and kind of went over projects, concerns, and that type of stuff, and it was very beneficial for us moving forward. We'd like to continue with that process, but we're always available to come meet with you, the commission meetings, if needed, or meet with you one-on-one individually, either or. All right, kind of walk you through the list of the projects. We have the first project, State Road 20. I know Commissioner Harvey is excited about the State Road 20 projects. He's worked 10 or 15 years or more longer on these projects. It is scheduled for construction in 2020. That's a portion from Alachua County to Southwest 56th Avenue. And the second one being the remaining portion from 56th Avenue to Interlocking is scheduled for construction in 2019. So They're on their way. They're coming. I know
Mr.
we've
Chairman.
worked really hard.
Commissioner Harvey?
Would you mind if I interrupt just a moment?
Feel free.
Larry Pritchett, who was our property appraiser here for years, and our Honorable Tim Smith worked with him, said that he voted for Sid Martin back when he was in college at UF because Sid promised a 4-lane 20 from Gainesville to Palaca. So this is the final segment, and it's been a long time coming. Larry Pritchett had a great career, been retired for a long time. So this is how it takes a long time sometimes to get things done in government, and this is a final piece, and I'm excited. The county should be excited because now it's going to give us a corridor to move in and out of. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to.
Thank you.
In the third project, being US 17, the widening from Satsuma to the west of the Duns Creek Bridge is scheduled for construction in 2023. And feel free to interrupt me as we go. We'll kind of cover these projects, but if you have any questions on them. The fourth project is really more of a right-of-way phase for the State Road 100 from the Water Management District to east of 17 for a future bike trail. But this time, only right-of-way is funded for that project. The next project's really a signal maintenance agreement. That's something you guys see every year, so no shockers there. The next project, State Road 100 at East End Road, that is an intersection improvement in San Mateo, and that's scheduled for construction in 2021. The next 4 are resurfacing projects on either State Road 20, State Road, or US 17, or 100. They're shown in the various years. If you have any questions on those, I'll be glad to answer them, but just a simple mill and resurface on those. Moving down to the next group of projects, the first 2 are lap projects, sidewalk, bike trail projects. The second funded for construction in 2020. The third project is the Safe Routes to School project, sidewalk near James Long Elementary and Robert Jenkins Middle School, scheduled for construction in 2023. The next 2 are resurfacing project, the first being on 315 from State Road 20 to 100, scheduled for construction in 2021. And the last in that group of projects is St. John's Avenue from Palm Avenue to the railroad crossing, scheduled for construction in 2020. The remainder of the projects, the next 5 or more your scrap Scott projects. First 2 are Lake Susan or Lake Ashley. Those are your Scott projects scheduled for construction in 2020. You have Palm Avenue it's scheduled for construction in 2022. And then you have the Drayton Island, kind of the ferry bridge replacements as we call them, but they're more of the ferry landing. We're replacing it on both the island side and on the land side. And those are scheduled to be replaced in 2021.
Okay, and I thank you for that because that's in District 1.
Those have been...
That's been a long time coming, and it will really make my life a lot easier when that's completed.
Mr. Chairman?
Okay.
Mr. Brown, I think on the Lake Ashley, that number is not completely right. There is a second phase of that that's going to hit this coming July. DOT put some more money into that so we can do the project hopefully all at one time. We bid it out in 2 phases, but there's another pot of money, and DOT took some money off the table to encourage that the job wouldn't be overfunded. So just to let you know that number is not exactly correct. So,
Okay, we'll look into that and verify.
that's fine.
Okay. And the last project on that group is Holloway Road. It's scheduled for resurfacing, reconstruction in 2023. And the rest are more kind of maintenance, aviation, or transit type agreements or projects. Not going to cover those, but if you have any questions, let us know on those. If not, transportation applications, TA program applications are due January 25th, and then Jamie has a few announcements also.
Is there, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, Commissioner Turner?
Is there any chance of getting any of these moved forward, or I know it's a funding issue, but the East End Road 100 interchange there is a pure safety issue is what it is, and I was wondering, was there any way we could move it up any?
Unfortunately, I mean, that project's, it took a lot of public involvement, outreach, trying to figure out the right solution there, and we feel like we do have the right solution there, dealing with staff and kind of listening to the public.
We had the public hearings last year and attended all of them and came up with a solution, the last one they did, which was a very good solution to it, so hopefully that's the design they end up using, was the last one that was approved by everyone in the room that day. I was just wondering, was there any chance in trying to move the right-of-way acquisition up any or any of that?
No, unfortunately, the right-of-way is kind of a 2-year process. It takes us some time to kind of purchase a property and move through that process. So that's really the holdup at this point. So unfortunately, there's no chance of moving it forward. But it is funded. We are moving forward with it. And I think we do have the right solution for the project.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
No
thank
harm
you.
in asking.
That's right. That's absolutely. Don't ask, the answer's always no.
I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce two things that should be on your window of opportunity. The first being that each year the Department of Transportation develops a 5-year transportation plan, which we deliver for public comment to enhance and to create additional opportunities for comment. You'll notice on your flyer, the last page, we actually have a reference to a website, d2wpph.com. That's an opportunity to provide comment through the internet-based format. So that's the first opportunity. The second, which Mr. Browning kind of spotlighted, we are currently soliciting for projects to be delivered through our SCOP, SCRAP, SIGP, and TRIP application process. We definitely encourage, we've got a great relationship with Putnam County. We want you to continue to solicit for projects. The window of opportunity to solicit will run through January of 2019.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you. We have submitted those. I know Public Works, we ranked them the other day, and we're moving forward with that. I want to ask you to help me do something. Back in 1991, Kelly Smith was our state legislator. Huey Hawkins was the district secretary. This is way back, probably before y'all were born, but I'm just saying. Bill Henderson, as you know that name very well. We walked the property out in Interlachen and where 20 was going to come through. And one of the challenges was moving the first house, Mr. Stock's house. That has been moved. You moved, actually DOT has moved that over off of North Francis Street, back over there on the lake, and you've set that house up and did a great job in doing that so far. So that was one idea. But Mayor Lyles was very instrumental in going to Tallahassee and meeting with the elected officials up there, and he's getting old. And I saw him last night, and he's very frail in health. And I would like for you to take back to Lake City, if there's a way that we could do some type of a opening on that road pretty soon, whether he could be a part of, because he was very instrumental, Mayor John Lyles was on that. So if you could go back and make that ask, I would be grateful for that. The second thing is, and I was approached last night, School Bus Road out in Interlachen, they're just east of 20 and 315. The oldest schoolhouse still being used in Florida is at the corner of 315 and 20, the Sid Martin building, which is now the JROTC building. But behind that, little people, not a whole lot of people know this, but the black school was back there. It was segregated at the time. And it's just one road over back there. And the Historical Society in Interlachen has asked me to ask you, they're in contact with your people about getting a historical marker placed on 20, but they would really like to see that happen pretty soon. It's got a lot of history there. And I was even told last night, there was a picture that Mr. McCoy gave me when I was in business years ago. And this school teacher actually, from what I heard last night from Miss Cunningham, who's 90 years old and went to school there, she actually would hitch a ride on a pulpwood truck to go to Interlachen to teach. So school started whenever she got there, okay? And at the end of the day, she'd time it where she could hitch a ride back on another pulpwood truck back to Palatka. And sometimes she couldn't make it because the roads would be flooded, so she couldn't get through. But it's history, and it's wonderful that, it's bad that it was segregation, but it's a wonderful part of our history, and that old building, and they really want some more ask, but that's not of you, that's of our local contractors, but we'll get to that soon. But if you could ask about a historical marker out there on 20, notating where that building is. It's owned by the Historical Society of Interlachen now. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to make those comments.
Mr. Harvey, any other questions or comments? Okay. Seeing
Mr. Chairman,
none.
could we ask for an update on the Shands Bridge replacement?
Okay. Any information on that?
It's currently funded in our fiscal year 23, which begins July 1st of calendar year 22. But it is currently funded all the way to First Coast Express will be completed all the way to the 95 connection.
And what year did you say?
Fiscal year 23, or July 1st of 22. Yes, sir.
So July 1 of '22.
Is when the earliest it could possibly start.
Okay. How long of a project is that? Do you have any idea?
Don't hold me
Years?
to it. I'll give you a range of plus 6 years, probably most 6 to 7 years or more. It's a pretty substantial structure.
Exactly. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Stephen, Jamie, thank you so much for the update and
Thank you.
and all you do for us. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Miss Mary Garcia.
My genius coming aboard here.
Wait, Brenda's running.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello.
Like sets that up.
Thank you.
I'll talk. We're so happy to be here today. Actually, it's hard and mixed emotions because this will be David's last presentation before you as one of our Department of Health employees. He retires unofficially on Thursday, officially at the end of the month. So it's kind of a sad moment for us, but a really interesting and wonderful way that we're able to highlight some of the work that he's done in Putnam County with our tobacco program. David started with our students working against tobacco when his son was in middle school, and then became active with the SWAT team in St. Johns County. In 2007, he began working on our tobacco program in Putnam County and started our first SWAT program in Crescent City. And that's just grown amazing to have a great presence, not only in Putnam County, but also we have had members of that SWAT team serve at the state level as well. It's amazing. In 2008, we received funding for our tobacco program in Putnam County, and we've been able to sponsor the fair, some sports teams, some PAL programs, and then community events like the Azalea Festival. In 2010, we had our first kudo and win with Georgia Pacific going tobacco-free on their grounds. We followed that up with other policies. In 2010, thanks to you, all our county parks went tobacco-free. 2011, St. John's Water Management. 2011, the Putnam County School District went smoke-free, and then proceeding from the hospital to back to the St. John's River State College went tobacco-free in 2015 at all of their sites. And then the fairgrounds went smoke-free in 2016. So just wanted to say that some of his involvement in tobacco has been instrumental in yielding some of the results that we are going to be highlighting as soon as my genius. Well, our thumb drives are all secured, and so we can't attach them to your computers without blowing them up. So, but his involvement has led some incredible positive results. So one of the things I'll go ahead and do now is one of the things that we've been involved with at the school district and the Department of Education is doing these studies, and they involve a lot of manpower with the school district. And so I want to present him also with a certificate of appreciation from the Department of Education and the Department of Health for carrying out the youth surveys as many years as he has carried them out in Putnam County. So I'm going to get you to look over there. Each have received a packet, some of the data. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, seeing how we're waiting a few minutes on IT, you think this may be a good time to take a short break and let them get it hooked up?
Okay, take a short 3-minute recess.
Free.
You better hurry.
Free.
Yeah.
Slave driver.
Well, I didn't see him over there. He's been waving his hand.
Hey, Miss Mary, is this yours?
No, No.
So
Must be a, well, no, you know what it is? It's to avoid bugs. Put one in your pocket.
That's okay.
I got so much
Still to
stuff.
be resolved.
Jeremy, did you sign our cards?
Not yet, I'll do that one.
I see that. He said he was gonna start coming. Oh.
Minute.
Oh, is he?
Mr. Turner's gonna be glad. Yeah. Mr. Turner can get a seat.
Everybody get seated here.
I give the door love. Sounds like a counselor.
Okay, I'd like to reconvene our meeting and turn it back over to Mary Garcia and David.
Thank you. I'm going to let David give his presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. Before I leave my position at DOH Putnam, I wanted to share some of the most recent data from the Florida Youth Tobacco Survey, which is done every year, every 2 years as a county level data. So in the United States, tobacco kills 480,000 people a year. In the 1,300 a day in the United States. In Florida, that accounts for 89 people dying every day of tobacco-related illness. So we track the statistics for the youth tobacco use by use of the Florida Youth Tobacco Survey. It was initially developed to monitor and evaluate the Florida Tobacco Prevention Control Program. It's been administered annually since 1998. State-level surveys conducted in odd-numbered years, and even-numbered years are county-level data, which is what I'm going to be presenting to you today. We track the following things: indicators of tobacco use, emerging tobacco products, exposure of secondhand smoke, tobacco use prevention education, thoughts and attitudes towards tobacco. Prior reports can be found online at fysonline.com if you're interested in looking for more. So the purpose of the survey is to determine the prevalence of youth behaviors that are of interest to the state, track these behaviors across time, collect data that is comparable to national, state, and or local data, and provide data among subpopulations of Florida's youth. So I started in the Florida Department of Health in 2007. So the last numbers that I had before when I started were in 2008. So in 2008, 14.8% of our youth in Putnam County used cigarettes. In 2018, that number's down to 5%. That's a 66% reduction. Any form of tobacco, 28% of our youth used any form of tobacco, including smokeless cigars. In 2018, that number's down to 10%. That's a 63% reduction. Smokeless tobacco has always been a major issue in rural counties. Currently, we have a 5.4% rate for 2018. In 2008, it was 12.7. The interesting number here is we also track the attitudes of youth. We call them committed never smokers. That number has gone from 47% in 2008 to 79.1% in 2018. And that's a 68% increase. So I've got a few charts just to kind of give you an idea of what the trends are here. This is ever tried cigarettes. In 2008, you see we kind of started around 25%, and it kind of trended evenly until 2016 when we started to see the downward trend. And in 2018, our numbers for ever tried cigarettes was down to 18.9%. The next one, we talk about vaping. E-cigarettes have been a tremendous issue across the state and across the nation. In fact, the current commissioner of the FDA has called it an epidemic among our youth. You see the trend here starting in 2008. I mean, it didn't exist in 2007. We went from basically 0 to 25% of our youth trying e-cigarettes. We did see a slight decline this year from 25.9% down to 23.5%. That's a 9% decrease. Ever used cigarettes, or currently used cigarettes, I'm sorry. These are youth that currently identify as having used cigarettes within the last 30 days. We saw a spike from 2012 to 2014, but we see the downward trend continuing. Currently used cigarettes, right now we are down to 5.1%, a 29% reduction from 2016, which we were at 7.2%. Currently used electronic vaping, you see the trend upwards from 2008. We actually flatlined over the last 2 years, 2016 and 2018. We remained at 12.3%. The rest of the counties surrounding us have all seen significant increases. Some of that may be due to affluence, maybe slow adopters, where we're still waiting to see where the trend goes next 2 years. But I'm pleased to see that we're just staying flat at this point instead of seeing the increases most of the other counties have seen. So as Mary mentioned, a lot of the successes we've had have been policy related. We have a smoke-free fair now. We are only the second fair that has ever done that in the state of Florida. Our county parks are tobacco-free. St. John's River State College is tobacco-free on all 3 campuses. We have major employers, including BEC, our hospitals, Solaris, St. John's River Management, and Georgia Pacific have all enacted tobacco-free campus policies or tobacco policies related to their employees. And our Putnam County School District went tobacco-free in 2011. They banned tobacco on all campuses countywide. Wanted to keep it brief, just kind of give you guys an update. You have in your packet all of the data for the last since 2012, including the state data, so you can compare it and look at it yourself. I also have the graph, like mine here, shows the trends. I want to just comment on one trend. We did see a slight uptick in smokeless use, 1.8%, which is kind of statistically insignificant at this point. So we're pleased to see that it's not going up any more than that. I would like to see that go down even more. Thank you for your time and appreciate all of your support and everything that we've done over the last 10 years. I look forward to handing it over to Ms. Jenny, who you saw taking pictures here earlier. She's going to be taking my role as the program manager, and we'll be looking forward to working with you some more in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I not have all the tall guys?
Mary, you out front?
Yeah.
Okay.
She wants all the tall people.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you guys so much.
You don't get to come down? Yeah, I'm good.
Man, it is freezing in here.
It just kicked in.
I had to bring an overcoat.
Okay, next on the agenda, Mr. Brian Bergen will give us a economic update for the third quarter.
Good morning again, Commissioners. For the record, Brian Bergen, Vice President for Economic Development, Putnam County Chamber of Commerce. I just want to go over briefly some of the highlights in the third quarter activity report that covers the period from July 1st through September 30th in there. We had, it looks like, only about 4 requests for RFPs from the state or the various agencies that we had. As we get into this time of year, it does kind of start to slow down a little bit. And given a little bit of the political climate in Florida, it has slowed even more as it has gone along. The GP project, as reported in this report, is still going strong. We know that they have over 500 construction workers on site at this point in time. And one of the apartments, or at least in the 100 block, I know that one of the construction companies down there rented the entire second floor that they had left in the apartments there. So, you know, we're seeing some different types of economic impact from that project as it moves along. One of the things that we do that's an important part of economic development is we do retention calls, and we do have work with CareerSource on those, and we try to do about 5 to 6 of those a quarter, meeting with different businesses. And again, to Commissioner Turner's point, most of the companies here in town aren't that we need more jobs, as we need more people. And we have more jobs currently than we have people to fill them. At this point, the unemployment rate was about 5.1%. and the workforce was about 27,000 people. So we're still seeing about anywhere from 800 to 1,000 open jobs consistently open quarter to quarter, where we're at right now. So any questions?
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any questions of Brian?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, our next item is public comment. This portion of the agenda is to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the attention of the board. It is not reasonable to expect the board to engage in a debate or deliberation on the matters in which we have no prior knowledge and is not on an agenda. There are public comments cards at the entrance of the commission room. If you please fill that and submit those to Sarah, and she will give them to me. So we have one that's submitted. You don't have to have a card, but it is recommended. So we have one person who would like to speak, Mr. Jim Teeple. You'd come forward.
Freezing.
And you have 3 minutes. If you'd state your name and address. And
Jim Temple, 5342 Southeast 7th Avenue, Keystone Heights. I'm a general contractor, and I just wanted to express a concern to the commission. I appreciate your time. Within the health department, environmental health, they are short-handed right now, dramatically short-handed for the past 5 or 6 months. We build homes for people. In the past 8 months, we've put approximately $1.5 million onto new tax rolls of new construction. 5 people have moved into Putnam County from other counties that we built for. Right now, I have contracts for 4 more people, about $1.2 million in new revenue and taxes. And every one of those 4 families are moving from another state or another county into Putnam County. In getting permits processed through environmental health with them being short-handed, they've closed the loan. They have a certain amount of time to build. This holds up getting my building permit from the building department, so I cannot begin construction. And then at the end, making inspections to get the CO, certificate of occupancy, is being delayed also because of them being short-handed. So the people cannot move in, but they're still paying interest on their loan to the bank for the construction loan. I've spoken with Ms. Garcia several times. She's working on that, but I wanted to make the board aware of it too. I've also spoken with Mr. Sokes, who I've had previous knowledge with him and known him for a while, but I've spoken to both of them. But I wanted to make the commission just aware of the situation and the challenges that environmental health is going through right now, and how it affects business people and your homeowners that are moving into your area. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman.
Hey, thank you. Excuse me. Yeah, Mr.
Just to let you know, we are well aware of it. 2 of the people sitting on the other side of this dais is also well aware of it, because we're in the construction business along with you on in our other life.
Right.
So if there's anything, Miss Mary, we can do to help you out in this, we would appreciate it, because he's right. It's been pretty rough. I mean, it's been pretty rough trying to get a septic permit, which you have to have before you can pull your building permit.
Right.
I'll just say, yes, and we are fortunately, because we're the Department of Health is an integrated Department of Health, we do reach out to our fellow counties. Sadly, it's our fellow counties who are stealing our very well-trained environmental health specialists. It is something that we are working at a statewide level. It is not just Putnam County. If it's not water management that steals our, we spend a year training our environmental health specialists. We're just getting them ready. They're getting all their certificates, and they become incredibly marketable. And even though we've told them the progression that we're going to have for them, young people, you know, it's a little bit different nowadays. They move very quickly from jobs to jobs. It's a little bit different. And so I can't blame them. I wholeheartedly support them and their effort to do better in their lives. It's just really difficult. So we've got 2 individuals that have been in training with us now for 2.5 months, and one starts on Friday. So we'll be fully staffed, and we have, I've taken on a lot of the administrative roles for environmental health on me So you can see me Fridays and Saturdays here if you'd like to, and Sundays at the office to alleviate that effort, and so that my manager can do 100% septics. So
I had no doubt you were doing everything in your power to rectify it. That's why
we
I
are.
said
It's
if
just very
if we can
frustrating.
help, let us know.
But
Even though
we're
you
becoming
don't
very
answer
good
with us,
friends.
we work more in a partnership than.
Yes, sir.
But if there's something
It
we can
is.
do, please ask us.
We have, and I'm even reaching out to our retired employees to come back, even if it is on certain days. So we're being very creative as we can, and as I said, it's an issue that's being looked at by a work group at the state level as well, because it happens in every organization. You get somebody well trained, and then they're very, very marketable.
Thank you.
Even amongst
I have
ourselves.
a question.
Okay, Commissioner Rawls?
Is it possible to use an outside third-party provider for inspections or permitting to get us over the hump?
No, sir, not at this time, not for the Department of Health, no. Fortunately, we do have some really very good individuals that do soil samples and do that work for us, so that's a benefit to Putnam County, that we do have individuals that have that expertise, so that my team is not having to do that. So they are doing that.
Is the inspections the slowdown, or the issue of the permit? What's the?
It's called septic systems is a long training process, and so while I may have a brand new staff, it takes me 2 months to get them through some of the certifications that they need to do, and then septic training only comes certain times of year, and so they are all signed up for the training that's coming up. I believe it starts in February. But, and so all of us are at the same level. We're all borrowing and sharing staff, depending on the regions and the areas. And you're well aware that when I took over after Mr. Holmes retired, we were only doing sanitary inspections two times, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And my manager said, no, this is one of those things that we need to do as a public service. It's really important. And so we're doing them at 100% of the time. So we're very dedicated to that.
For clarity, is the permitting the what's slowing down, or is it inspections, or both?
There's a lot. I mean, it's a good thing for Putnam County. Right now we have about 20 permits. I think we're down to 8. We're getting some help with writing permits, so we're getting through those as we go. But yes, it's a good thing. It means that we're having a lot of construction going on in Putnam County, so it's a very good thing, or a new septic system's being put in.
Well, my question is the chink in the chain, is it permitting, or is it inspections, or is it both that you're lacking?
It's the timing of both of them, yes, sir. It's being out in the field is terribly important, and so it requires a certain amount of times to do it, and then coming back into the office and writing those results, and then getting through the permits that are essential, that are repairs and the sanitary nuisances done as quickly as possible, and then for the construction ones to get done. So it does take a lot of desk space.
You need more employees in the office and
We've
in
got
the
them.
fields.
We've got them being training. It's just that they need to be trained. They cannot write. They're reviewing them now, so they're getting the expertise, but they're not trained to sign off on them. And I think Mr. Temple teased me that I should sign off on them, but you really don't want me to be doing that. I'm meaner than most.
Well, thank you, Mary. I appreciate it. I didn't really intend this to become a full-blown discussion.
That's okay. It's, you know, I think that this is
I just wanted Mr. Temple to know we feel his pain.
Yeah, and he's very sweet. We're trying to keep up with each other, I think almost daily now, but I need to tell him we're going to try to update each other each week. But as I said, we're reaching out to other counties around us. They're in the same position, which is why they took 3 of our very well-trained employees. And unfortunately, all at the same time. It wasn't like it was one. It happened. It was just a perfect storm. It happened all at once, and so it's not like we could do overlays and we could bring somebody on board. We actually, for us, I've insisted that we have the extra third person that, according to the state, we really don't need, because I do need the overlay. So I think we've planned on that with your support. Actually, I did that in front of you, in front of the board, allowing us to look at our fee structure so that we could bring in another individual on board to help us with this. So you've been very helpful to us. You've been very supportive of it, and it's really just getting we try to get seasoned employees, and they're looking too well outside of public health. So we're raising them ourselves. All right.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right,
sir.
Mary,
Thank you
very
so
much.
Mr. Chairman, if I could real quick, while Mr. Temple is here, just wanted to real quick just tell Jim it was good seeing you again, Jim. As you heard earlier, Mr. Temple said that he'd known me for a while. What you don't know is Mr. Temple was one of the first ones to give me a job when I was back in high school and working for his construction company. So looking out in the audience this morning and seeing Mr. Temple was a good thing. So Jim, it was a pleasure seeing you again.
Okay. Mr. Temple, did he work hard? That's the question I need. Good deal, good deal.
I didn't know you could even drive a nail.
Now you do, don't you?
Okay. Thank you. The next public comment, Mr. Tim Hotelin.
Time's up. Next. Sorry.
Operator error, Tim.
Oh, okay. And again, I'm up here on one of your things that's on the agenda, assuming you want it done now, but you've got a thing that was advertised in the newspaper about 3 times where Miss Nilda Siebert, the MSBU coordinator, is supposedly the bottom, you know, in running this, which would lead me to believe that it's what I'd seen in the past was the annual passing of the definition of the MSBU unit, allowing the individual small suburbs groups, whatever the, pardon my terminology, but to collect money so that they can fund the stuff that's out and beyond what the county has. The attached resolution, which I emailed you all my concerns, and I was sort of hoping to get some feedback, but I didn't get an acknowledgement to anything, let alone feedback, so I'm having to be here. I have some concerns with the way it's written. This resolution, nowhere does it say MSBU. It just says that you're going to collect the non-ad valorem special assessments, but it also says you're going to collect it from the unincorporated and the incorporated, the municipalities. That's everybody in the whole county. And I have an old saying, is one is a tax, not a tax, when it's a fee. And if you're bloody well going to tax everybody, well, I'm sorry, I got out of joint here. It says you're going to only collect money from the unincorporated people. That's me. And then you're going to be spending money for the municipalities out of that, which includes the formal MSBU stuff. My wife got real excited about the paying money for subdivision entranceway construction and maintenance and street lighting. She says, why am I paying for some subdivision's entranceway? And I tried to proffer to her is because you're mixing apples and oranges, and it's 2 different things with a flashback from the previous administrator. I don't know how you can, I guess you're still going to go forth with this resolution as was printed, which says that you're going to levy assessments for both the unincorporated and the municipalities. I'm not quite sure y'all can do that. And if in fact it's under the guise, as I've had 3 different people tell me, of providing the power and authority which is necessary for the MSB units, it's not mentioned. And the other thing that I'd hope that you'd talk about is the big money that you spent on that fire fee study. It just sort of disappeared, which was all in regard with the previous administrator's efforts to cause a countywide MSBU, Municipal Service Benefit Unit, and legal requirements that say that if you're going to charge people for fire fees, then you can only charge them for what their what the value of that service is it provided. And I know you all know that Alachua County's got a lawsuit going on right now as to whether you can do what this thing says. And bottom line is, I think this is premature, and I think you all need to talk about it in a workshop. So, is there anything, or can I sit down?
Mr. Chairman, may I have something?
Commissioner Rawls?
I actually did, when I received this from you, I got with Mr. Suggs and Mr. Manning and Ms. Wapil, and we did discuss this, and what I was assured was that this was it's the way they've been doing business, and the word continuous is not in here. I told them that I had concern about that myself, because this is supposed to be continuation of fees that are already being assessed, and that if there was any assessments that were not currently being assessed, they would be handled, and there would be public hearings on it publicly. So we will be bringing this up. I would encourage you to stick around for that.
If this was a continuation, this resolution wouldn't say the BOCC is contemplating the imposition.
Yep.
I respectfully disagree with all of that presentation, and I respectfully disagree. If you look at history, you'll find one when the lovely gal, I'm brain dead, but that did the MSBU before she retired. And if you look as to what was passed, you'll find that it's different than this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other public comment? Okay, Mr. Earl?
Earl Ballinger, 496 Clifton Road, Crescent City. There was a little disagreement amongst you commissioners this morning. That's a good thing. You're supposed to disagree. I like to see that. If you all agreed on everything, we wouldn't need you. Mr. Sachs could do the whole job himself. But what I would like to add is what everybody said this morning. I kind of agree with all of you. I mean, what Mr. Rawls said, this needed to be vetted out by everybody before, not here. Well, Mr. Harvey said that this thing has been a drain on their finances for 15 years. Sell it at a loss, we might make our money back in taxes over a few years, who knows? Then Mr. Turner comes in and says, well, let's put some contingencies in the contract. All great ideas. And that is why y'all disagree. And I think because of that, we're going to come up with something good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Earl.
Glad to do my part.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, we'll close the public comment portion of this meeting, and we'll move to our consent agenda. There is one addition to the consent agenda, which is item N, which is a correction to the fee schedule through the building department. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so it's just a correction.
Yeah, what this is was a scrivener's error, and we're asking just to have a resolution adopted today to correct the scrivener's error.
Okay.
I have one question. There's, I think, what's in yellow, is that what's being put in or taken out?
Let me pull my paper real quick.
On page 6, you have a dollar sign in front of 50, and then you have percentage sign behind it.
Okay,
Is it
wait. Let's go ahead and go through this motion. If we'll look at the consent agenda, and I will start to my right with Commissioner Rawls. Are there any items you wish to pull?
Let's pull N, and if you don't mind, and also F and G.
Okay, that's N, F, and G. Commissioner Goddard?
I have none.
Commissioner Turner?
I have none.
Commissioner Harvey?
Item J, please.
And I have none. Okay, we'll start with Commissioner Rawls, and let's take them in order while he's looking up the information on N. So if you want to do F and G first.
So I talked to Mr. Suggs about this. In reading, and F and G are both pretty much the same thing. It's apparently hardening of the health department windows and doors. It describes fenestration protections. And I may be misreading this, but the grant was apparently from 2016. I'm not sure when the contract was let out, but there's been a code change since 2016, and it described the exposure category as exposure C. And in 2017, the exposure categories were changed, which would make C a lower exposure category. So I'd asked Mr. Suggs if there was any way he could check to make sure that since there was a code change, that what was put in contract in 16 or put out then would still be relevant, because we can go through these changes and then come back and not be able to get the work done. The other thing was, why are we spending almost $10,000 on engineering for window and door protection? There's a lot of stuff you can buy off the shelf that meets the ASTE standards, ASTM standards, the ASCE standards that they call out. And I'm just wondering if we really need to spend $10,000 in engineering, since you can buy pre-engineered products that you can just bolt on the building.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Turner?
Commissioner Rawl, when I showed up around here a little over a year ago, I was as frustrated about this kind of stuff as you are right now. In our everyday life, we go out and we do exactly what you said, but when we're sitting on this side of the diocese, part of the grant requirements, I understand it, are that we have professionals. While you and I have a lot of common sense because we do this for a real living, we don't necessarily have enough letters after our name to be able to do that engineering for them, and so I think that's why this is in there. I don't think we have a choice. Well, but I agree with what you said.
My question is, if I can go buy a pre-engineered door assembly under Florida product approval, I can install that with a permit. I can do the same thing with roll-up or roll-down shutters, windstorm protection. There's a myriad of and I've looked some of it up online, of products that are available that come with engineering, so it would not require any additional engineering. The company that supplies the material would supply the engineering data with it, and we wouldn't have to pay extra for it. You got a $25,000 design fee, and then you got a $9,500 engineering fee, and it's just the numbers add up, and I think we have a chance of saving $10,000. But it was just when I saw that, the biggest concern was there's a shift in wind exposure categories year over year, and we're 3 years down the road in the contract, and just want to make sure that we're not wasting our efforts here.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's an excellent point, Commissioner, that we need to make sure we're working under the proper building code, but that again is why we need architectural services for the project, because again, while you and I have the ability to decide which window that we would go and select and go and put it into the correct procedure, the people at the EOC do not have that expertise, so they're going to have to.
It's actually in our packet. The language is in our packet that we're asked to approve. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yes,
this isn't. I'm not getting the weeds. It was in what was given to me. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yes, sir. I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on F and G?
Nope.
Okay.
And then you want to move to N, or?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to N if Commissioner or County Administrator Suggs is ready.
Just that thing on page 6, it says $50, and then it says percent right behind it. Is it 50% or $50?
It's 50%. What it was a scrivener's error. The dollar sign was put in place of the percentage sign. Yes, sir.
Well,
okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Turner.
So our fee before we changed it a few months ago was 50% of the value of the permit. So if somebody comes in with a multi-million-dollar project whose fee is $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for a permit, then half of that is going to be an addition as a review?
The schedule of the plan right now, the preliminary plan review, is in addition to, it's a 50% of the permit fee.
All right, Mr. Siafi, could you come up here, please, and try to explain this to me, because we're fixing to blow this up, and I don't think it's correct. I don't believe what you, I don't think that you're explaining it like I understood it to be. So, if Mr. Siafi.
Yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
So the correction that's being made is when they transferred all this information, the commercial plan review fee was not moved over. So that was, it was not that it was deleted, it was just missed, okay? And the old fee under preliminary plan review, it always said 50% of review fee, okay? So that's preliminary. So that means if your plan review fee is $200, you're going to give us 50% up front to start that review. It's not an additional fee. It's just you submit your plans, we're going to take 50% of the fee up front. When we provide the service, we get a lot of guys that submit that never show up. We've exhausted all these resources and never.
So it's more like a deposit is what you're telling me, not
Yes,
an
sir.
additional fee?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You're
that's
correct.
what I understood
I'm reading,
it
I
to
was
be.
reading off the form at the bottom in parentheses that said additional.
Okay.
So.
Just make it that ain't what you said.
Yeah, I don't disagree. That's why we have a building official in the office,
Mr.
or
Siafi,
in the audience.
Mr.
That's why
Siafi,
they're here.
Can you give us an example real quick? If, like, to his point, if you've got a $1 million project that's gonna have $50,000 worth of permit fees, do you just throw an arbitrary number at that, trying to get to, if somebody brings in 300 pages of plans for you to go through, you can't do that for $50. How do you come up with the cost to do that?
The fee schedule had already been determined. That was in place when I got here. The problem was they carried the wrong symbol over. It wasn't a dollar, it was a percentage mark that should have been moved over.
So
the fee schedule has not been changed. That's not what we're doing. We're just trying to correct it back to where it should have been. They missed it when I think this page was typed instead of a Word document, so that's how it got missed.
what would you use as to fill that number in?
Well, we have a fee schedule that tells you what your permit costs are and what the plan review fee would be. So that 20% number distinguishes what your plan review fee of the cost is. And then it has a minimum number on there of $75. So it's either 20% or 75.
So let's just say it was 20% of 50,000, that's $10,000. Then the 50% rule would kick in before you do anything. You're gonna get a $5,000 deposit.
They always do a deposit
Okay.
when they drop off. Yes, sir.
Okay, anything else on item N? Okay.
If not, I would like to say thank you to my staff for explaining that. Thank you, John.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate you being
Thank
here
you,
today.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey, item J.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call Mike Nimitz up, if you don't mind. Press Tompkins had to leave the room to go to a meeting. They are fully aware that I was going to bring this up today. I want to talk about the benefits of this really quickly and how we got to where we got. We got to where we're at today because there used to be a drainage district out in Florahome that was a self-imposed, well, state statute drainage district that was able to levy fees, and that's how those canals coming from Mr. Clay's land and Mr. Tanner over to the south of 100 and then to the north of 100, the property Mr. Griffin, Coral Farms, Chaparral, and all that would flow back into the Etna Creek area, crossing, Coral Farms, not Coral Farms.
Holloway Road.
Holloway Road, and then finally working its way through Barden Road and back out to Rice Creek. So it's a pretty big project. We got this project with USDA, and with the help of Mike and Mr. Cuneo and Mr. Tompkins, we were able to deliver maps to the landowners out there. And in those maps, we asked them to highlight areas of concern on their property. I don't want to be long-winded here, but this is important to know. We also, because it might come back up, our scope of work is very precise with USDA.
That's correct.
We cannot dredge, for example. But these canals haven't been dredged in 20 years? Is that we figured, Mr. Cuneo, Mr. Nimitz? 15?
2005, I believe, was the last time.
Okay,
it
so
was actually
13
cleaned
years we've seen this done before, and we probably won't see this done again, 15 years or something in that nature.
Well, we are pursuing funding.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So to look at this, there might be a possibility that when the lowest contractor, and that gives me a little heartburn because they're out of Miami. I wish it was local because local people know that area better than anybody, but irregardless of that, that's how that cookie crumbled there. But there might be some opportunities for us to, when we started this, Mr. Nimitz, remember we went to water management, and we pretty much said there's going to be some cleaning that has to be done. So, but inside that scope of work, it's a very minimal taking of dirt out to restore water flows. You might find that there might be 2 or 3 sand traps along the way in these canals. And I just want to bring to the board's awareness that if that happens, that might be an opportunity at that moment, really quickly, to get back to the county, get back to us, and see how do you want to proceed at this moment. But we have a very quick time frame on this to complete this project too. So and water management will not let us do a whole lot of dredging either. So we're kind of limited, but we might find that if we go through there and just pull up all the logs that are laying around in the canal, that might not help the water flow, is my point. And we might have to react as a board or an administration level very quickly to, and with water management, to say, can we dig this out a little bit to restore those water flows? Mr. Nimitz, did I leave anything off that I wanted the public to know and you to know and our fellow board members to know?
Again, this is a great project for the county. It's 19.5 miles of the Floor Home Drainage District as well as Etna Creek that we'll be cleaning out. And you're absolutely correct. We will need, the concurrence of St. Charles River Management District to do any dredging of the nature that you referenced. But we will be looking for opportunities to do that on a case-by-case basis, if it will be evident, or a demonstrated need that we need to do it and address it, we will present it to the board for consideration, as well as the River Management District.
Or our administrator under the guidelines of our purchasing, but one or the other. I just don't want to pull up logs and not solve the problem is the point. And if we have an opportunity to solve problems, then we need to be very quick about that.
Absolutely, but the logs, as we know, is the first step in the process. So I'm proud of where we're at today and optimistic that we'll get to where we want to be. It's just going to take some time. I
agree, and thank you for all your hard work. Mr. Cuneo, I want to thank you also. We had meetings, and we've had many meetings, and I think, Mr. Suggs, it was almost your first day. We were over at the Ag Center, and,
yes, it was. And
Representative Payne was there. And this is an important thing to drain those fields so these farmers can use their properties. And we probably couldn't go back and rebuild those drainage areas like in today's environment, but hey, it is what it is, and at least we got a grant that pays for that, and we're moving in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Commissioner Turner?
Yes, I'm glad to see this started myself because we're trying to get it started in East Palaca also with the cleaning of the debris in the ditches and the creeks. I think that we got a legislative appropriation last year to start on one of the creeks over there, and hopefully we can extend it this year, and we've been working on it some also. I think part of the problem over the years has been it's been so dry for so many years that nobody felt it necessary to go out and spend the time and money to do all these cleaning and all the stuff that needed to be done. And now that we've had 100+ inches of rain in less than a 12-month period this year, we see that we need to start cleaning and maintaining some of those areas. So I'm glad to see this started, and hopefully we can get it over into East Palaca before long. So
thank you, Mr. Turner. Administrator Suggs?
Yes, sir. Let me just make sure I got this clear that whatever authority, whatever scope of necessary additional cleanup, as long as it meets the mandate of the River Water Management District and my authority, you want me to go ahead and proceed with that. Those that do not, I need to bring back to the Board of County Commissioners. Is that what I'm hearing? You want me to continue to push this project through?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Harvey?
Well, I'm hoping that we don't find any sandbars that would cause us any problems, but I think that would be kind of not good thinking on our part. So I think we're going to see some things as we go. I have not walked the 19-mile canal. I can tell you that. I'm scared of them things that live in that canal. But I think that's what we're trying to say is we're going to have to use due diligence here because it's a project that could last us another 15 years. We don't want to go back out there and, you know, put a Band-Aid or lipstick on a pig. We want to do this right.
And absolutely. Take advantage of the mobilization that's in place would be ideal.
If at all possible. If water management says you can't do it, you can't do it, then we can't do it. But, you know, maybe cooler heads will prevail at that point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Chris Hawley. Any other questions for Mike or James? Okay, thank you very much.
I've got one question.
Okay.
If this did happen, where does the funding come from?
Funding came from USDA and a grant. For additional. That's come out of Public Works.
Right out of your front pocket.
Well, it would be something the board would have to decide at that point. Where the money? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead. You're fine.
We should decide. We'll decide the value and where we find the money at that point.
So it's not a change order automatically to the contract?
No,
complete?
no.
Okay.
No. Not at all. Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
you,
Mr.
Thank you.
Cuneo.
Okay. Any other discussion on the consent agenda?
I move that we pass item A through N on the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, we got a proper first by Commissioner Turner, proper second by Commissioner Rawls. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Seeing none, consent agenda passes. Okay, next on the agenda, public hearing. Proposed resolution for the 2018 Uniform Method of Collecting Non-Ad Valorem Special Assessment. Okay. Can I digress just a minute and ask for any comments from the Honorable Tim Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'll go ahead and say something. I don't know the reason it's in that position, but I don't like it, so I'll discuss it with you. That's probably why I skipped it. So anyway, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to point out that we have a little table over here by the deputy clerk's position. We have a picture of Tony Pace, and as you all know, we discussed last time of her passing. Our office held a little memorial service last Friday before our annual holiday lunch. We spoke about Tony and our fond remembrances of her and of the great work that she did on behalf of this Board of County Commissioners and for the citizens of Putnam County. We have a book that if any of you would like to sign or make any comments, we would ask that you do that, and then we will deliver that to her family. So thank you for allowing me to make those comments.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move to the public hearing for the collection of the non-ad valorem special assessments.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Administrator
Chair.
Suggs, you want to take this?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. If you'd like, I'll read the resolution by title. The resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Putnam County, Florida, electing the use of uniform method of collecting non-ad valorem special assessments levied in the unincorporated area of the county and within boundaries of all municipalities, stating a need for such levy, providing for the mailing of the resolution, and providing for an effective date. I would also like to, just for point of clarification, the resolution that was presented here today was the same resolution that was presented here last year. It's a resolution that has to be approved annually in order to be able to continue utilizing the uniform method of collection for collection of those non-ad valorem assessments. If you'd like, Mr. Chair, I'll also go into a little more detail that we have fielded many questions from commissioners as well as concerned citizens regarding the use of the uniform method of collection. The ability to do this is done through the passing of this resolution. The language that's included in the body just lets folks know that if we're going to
levy a non-ad valorem assessment. This would be the vehicle in which the county would use to collect those fees. Nothing in the resolution states that we're going to implement any new fees. As you know, public hearing has to be held in order to be able to do that. But this just notifies folks that if there's any new non-ad valorem assessments passed, then we would use this method for collection of those fees.
Okay. Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Feel free to join me.
The little history here, going back to when I first started and hit the ground running, I didn't like all this catch-all phrase myself. I found it very disturbing that we were fishing with a cast net and not just a line. But I understand that if we impose any more MSBU's, then public hearings are part of the equation. So that's just my comment. I still would like to see us hone down on that to specifics, but I'm good with the way it is right now. But I think in the future we could talk about maybe finiting that and cleaning that up some there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other comment? Commissioner Rawls?
I agree with Commissioner Harvey. I think if we put the word continuing or continuous, referencing MSBU's or contracts that we have in place, or not contracts, fees that we have in place, it might clean it up a little bit. But I think where I have heartburn, and several people I talked to did, is where it says the county commission is contemplating the imposition of special services, and this is advertised in the Plaquemine Daily News. So I think in the future, if we could change the language a little bit, add a few more words, but also get this before the commission, not in the only meeting in December, right before this. This doesn't have to be approved by January the 1st. The statute says that if the property appraiser and the tax collector agree, it can be approved by March 1st. So, again, I feel like as a new commissioner coming in, I'm being rushed to make a decision on something. I don't have any problem with the explanation that was given to me, but I think in the future it'd be nice if this came before the commission, say in October, maybe November. This won't, it doesn't even take effect until next year, but I think we could do something to clean the language up to help alleviate some of the anxiety of the public.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rawls. Any other comment? I do have a comment before we take this to a vote. Mr. Tim, I did not ignore your concerns. I think like the other commissioners, they met one-on-one with, I actually had a phone conversation with County Administrator Suggs and Stacy Manning, our legal counsel, about your concerns, and I also had some other questions. But if this is to have a vehicle to collect these MSBU's that are already in place through our taxing authority, correct? Through your tax bill, so we don't have to send these out separately. And also allows us, that if we were going to do one, that we wouldn't have to revisit that or send this out separately. But in no way are we considering anything new, and if we would bring that to the commission, and we would discuss it to a workshop, and then it also would come before a public hearing where you would have your input on that. So we're not really trying to sneak anything in on anybody. It's just to do business as usual, and it's actually the same one that we approved last year. So, but I did not get back with you, that is true, but I did not ignore it. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I might just jump in, this is a public hearing, so additional public comment should be sought before board action. And the second point being that, everything I'm hearing here said is accurate. This really is a vehicle to collect those taxes, which the board either has or might in the coming year adopt as special assessments. And again, if there were to be any new special assessments adopted, there's a full procedure for doing that. It requires public notice and hearings and whatnot. This is just a vehicle, a cost-saving measure, really, is the way it is. It saves the taxpayers the cost of what it would take to have the staff mail out individual bills to everybody that does pay a special assessment, and it doesn't just include MSBU's. It's also the fire. assessment. So, and your solid waste special assessment, that is also collected on the tax bill. So all of those things would have to be billed separately, and of course there'd be, you know, a cost associated with that. So,
okay, thank you, Commissioner Turner.
While I understand what's going on, I do. I agree with Commissioner Harvey and Commissioner Rawl that maybe we could work on this language some. Personally, I'm willing to let this move forward today, but I'd like to make a challenge that between now and next year, that it actually be brought to workshop, be discussed, and possibly insert some of this language that has been discussed here today by the commissioners, and or delete some of the things that's been discussed here today by the commissioners, where this won't hold us up, but it will at least we get it done before we have to pass this by next year. So that's just a comment that I'd like to make.
Okay, and I also agree with Commissioner Rawls, Turner, and Harvey. I'd like to see this back at a workshop probably in October, so we have time to make those changes and really discuss this and hone down on it. So maybe it's a little more you know, pleasing, still does the job a little more pleasing to the public.
and if might again, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Papel just reminded me to correct myself that the fire is actually an ad valorem, but your solid waste. Yeah. But, and again, thank you, Stacy. This is a public hearing, so any additional public comment should be sought before board action.
Okay, at this time I'll open up the public comment portion of this meeting. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this, please come to the podium and state your name and address. You have roughly 3 minutes.
Tim Hoteling, 105 Riverside Way, San Mateo. I don't want to belabor it. I understand the need for this action. Absolutely. It's gone on year after year. But the plain language in this resolution, in my opinion, is defective. The very title of it, it says you're levying assessments on unincorporated and boundaries, within the boundaries of all municipalities. To me, then you go on and say you're only going to collect, in the body of it, you're going to collect from the unincorporated area. To me, it's a language issue, not a need. Nowhere in here does it say MSBU. Nowhere in here does it say this is so we can continue to collect money for the services that we provide each and every year. Nowhere does it say that. It says we're contemplating. It's the verbiage that I object to.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other individuals which will make a comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion of this hearing. And what is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval to adopt the 2018 resolution and authorize your signature on this certification.
Okay, we have a proper motion.
I'll second.
Got a second by Commissioner Goddard. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Next public hearing is Sheriff's Office. Invitation for the public comment concerning expenditures of the 2018 Edward Byron federal grant. I'll call Colonel Joe Wells up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Annually, as you guys have probably seen before, the Sheriff's Office receives the Edward Byrne JAG, or Justice Assistance Grant. That's a grant that Putnam County receives, and then portions of that are distributed to the municipalities for law enforcement purposes. And we spend that in a variety of ways, mostly on equipment that we could not otherwise afford. Well, this year, our proposal is to use our share of $22,651 of that towards the addition of an unmanned aerial vehicle. Some people refer to those as drones. It's a requirement of the Justice Assistance Grant that to use that monies for unmanned aerial vehicles, there must be a public hearing to do so. So that's why we're doing this today. I'll give you a brief history on that, and then we can open up to any comment. So the Sheriff's Office is currently, and has been for an excess of a year, operating 3 unmanned aerial vehicles. 2 of those are very small, basic UAVs that are equipped only with cameras. One of those unmanned aerial vehicles is a larger, considerably more expensive UAV, which is equipped with very high resolution camera and FLIR, or forward-looking infrared devices. Those UAVs have been in the past used, just to name a few, thinking off the top of my head, the location of a homicide suspect. We use them on missing persons cases. We use it in Crescent City to map the wreckage field of an airplane crash and to assist in the locating of the victims. In that they can be launched from boats for search and rescue type operations, also aerial photography, you name it. All of our UAV operators are FAA certified UAV operators, also have their nighttime waivers to operate at night, and are all trained in the legal ramifications of operating these, and of course, and stay up on the law and abide by the law when search warrants aren't required for the operation of UAVs. So they have been a very effective tool at a fraction of the price that an aircraft would cost, and have been very successful, so successful in Putnam County that we're often called upon by our neighboring counties to assist. We've been, however it has come to be, I'm proud to say, but however it's come to be, been recognized throughout the state as the leading edge law enforcement agency for the operation of UAVs, and we've been other agencies have reached out to us from as far south as Palm Beach County to help them stand up their UAV programs, and we're in the process right now of helping St. Johns County stand up their UAV program. So that's the gist of it. Most of the money that has been used towards our UAVs have been through these justice assistance grants or federal forfeiture money, those monies that have been seized through federal enterprise. This is simply announcing our intention with public consent that we spend $22,651 towards the purchase of a 4th unmanned aerial vehicle. I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Colonel Wells, thank you for bringing this up and reading the documents here. Concern that I would have would be surveillance on public, but this is very specific. Right. That if you needed to do that, you'd have to go through before a judge and get approval and all that. So that took a lot of heartburn away from me. Absolutely. You know, and I applaud you for doing this. I've seen these drones. I've actually grabbed a hold of one down and didn't take me off though, at down at Punta Gorda at the innovation conference that FAC had, and it's just amazing. And they're using these drones in Hurricane Michael area, the ravaged area, for communications. Absolutely. For wireless communications. So it's a great possibility for Putnam County, and I just really wanted to thank you, but let the public know that, you know, sure, we're not surveilling them. Right. If we do, we have to go through a court order and a process to do that. So I appreciate it. Absolutely.
And we did heavily use these drones after our impact from our last 2 hurricanes, especially in the Federal Point and other low-lying areas, to get in there and survey the areas. So it is absolutely correct that while law enforcement agency may fly a helicopter over anybody's property at any time for surveillance reasons, that luxury does not exist to unmanned aerial vehicles. Anytime we plan to do or intend to use this for surveillance, photography on private property, generally speaking, a complete search warrant is required to be signed by a judge. And we have had to follow that process a few times in order to use our UAVs in that manner. The only exception to that would be in exigent circumstances. If we had immediate life danger, then we could do so. But generally speaking, yes, our detectives, deputies, whoever wishes to use it for that, cooperates with our general counsel and through the state attorney's office and all the way through the process of obtaining a search warrant before we ever use these to fly over private property. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Turner?
Is this the same grant you bought your last one with last year, or is it a different grant?
Is that correct, Major Rose? Did we use part of this for last year? Yes, sir, we did.
It's the same grant?
Yes, sir.
How many of these how many of these you want? I mean, for long you can hook one to each corner of a pickup truck and just fly it around.
No, certainly not the case. We want to.
Sorry, Joe, I was being.
You're fine, but we want to add one more at this point, and we're trying to get them strategically placed throughout the county, so for very quick deployment. That is one of the things that we found about these UAVs that has made them so much more successful over helicopters is our surrounding counties are very gracious, and if we call Alachua or St. John's and we need a helicopter, they normally agree to send it. It's about an hour out, and typically speaking, we can put these drones in the air sometimes in less than 15 to 20 minutes, and certainly that gives us a head start. So we are upping the fleet by one, Commissioner Turner, at this time.
And the drone doesn't cause as much excitement as the helicopter out in Interlaken Lake Estates that time. Remember that?
I do.
Yeah, so
I do.
That caused a lot
certainly
of
gets
excitement.
everybody involved. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Rawls?
So the $22,000, that's the purchase price only? That's the cost of the drone itself?
No, sir. That's a portion of this larger platform, which will match the same one that we're currently operating. That drone in total is near $40,000 once it's equipped with the cameras and FLIR system. So we will have to add money to that, and that money has been carved out of our federal forfeiture fund to make the rest of this up.
That's in your current budget?
The federal forfeiture, yes.
But you're budgeted to spend that. This is not on top of that, correct?
Well, at a federal forfeiture, the money remains available to us. The state forfeiture fund, yes, does have to have a budgeting procedure, and those expenditures come before you. The federal forfeiture is a rolling fund that we can use at any time as long as it meets the federal guidelines for the use of those funds, yes.
So we're spending $40,000 on the drone in total?
That's going to be roughly the cost. I mean, they fluctuate based on the cameras, but yes, there's going to be roughly about that. So we're going to have to pull roughly 10 to 18, somewhere between $10,000 or so out of that to do it.
What is the longevity on one of these things?
So, any major or lieutenant, whichever one of these are both Major Rosers, our director of law enforcement, Lieutenant Taylor, who is one of our UAV certified operators, are here. So he may be able to speak more specifically to that. But the ones that we have in now are the oldest one is what, going on 2 years?
Correct.
Okay.
Probably matters if one of them gets crashed or not, too, doesn't it?
Well, I'll tell you, on this drone, the two very small ones that have a price tag of $1,500 and more used for training and more immediate deployments, this one is fully insured. So yes, we do have an insurance policy.
There you go.
I can tell you it's cutting edge technology. So as far as longevity, we anticipate 5 to 10 years because with this technology, it's evolving every year. So it's kind of new for everybody. So the 5 to 10 years is a best guess scenario. So there's nothing in concrete.
Okay. Any other questions? Or you may have answered this question. Any other extra insurances that you have to have to operate these drones?
On the larger or the workhorse of these drones, the larger the two, which is what we're talking about here, yes, it is insured through the Florida Sheriff's Risk Fund for both liability. If anybody is injured through the drone, property damage is called, or the drone itself gets destroyed. I will tell you that when we contacted them about insuring this drone, they said, insure a what? And we have the first insurance policy written in the state of Florida on a UAV. So it is completely insured if it's destroyed, if it is damaged, if it causes injury or property damage to others. Yes, sir.
What about a lawsuit where somebody thinks you're spying and sues you for spying, think that you're spying on them rather than conducting a procedure?
So that was a question that we asked specifically, and they said, and the answer is, just like any of our other operations, that's covered through our risk fund. If litigation is brought amongst us for any other, let's say, bad search or false arrest, that's covered through the risk fund. The rider on our policy, which we already have for all that, was for the actual operation and cost of the drone or property damage the drone itself may cause.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Colonel Wells.
Yes, sir.
This is a public hearing, so I'd like to open up the public comment portion of this meeting. Any individuals wishing to speak for or against this? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment portion. And what is the pleasure of this board?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
Second.
Okay, we got a proper motion from Commissioner Harvey. Having a hard time saying your name today. And a second by Commissioner Rawls. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. That closes our public hearing, and we'll move on to appointments. I'll start with Commissioner Rawls, to my right.
So I'll have to get Amanda the rest of the information for these individuals, but I have Joel Danzler for the Planning Commission. Ms. Cheryl Meese has agreed to stay on for an additional 3-year term for the Better Place oversight.
Somebody getting all this?
We're trying.
Amanda?
Gabe McKinnon as well for the Better Place. And Leon Edenfield for the Zoning Board of Adjustments. That fills my dance card.
Are those all district-specific appointments?
District 2, yes. Do I have others?
No, I didn't know none were at large, correct?
No.
We have to vote on those, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
None at the district level. You do not.
Okay.
Oh, there it is.
Commissioner Goddard?
I don't have an appointment, but I am going to remove Martin Crosswith from the Affordable Housing Committee.
Okay, that takes no action because it's on the district level. Okay. Commissioner Harvey?
Yes. I want to reappoint Mary Lynn Panettiere to Parks and Recreation on my District 4 appointment. And that's the only appointment I have right now, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a point of clarity real quick? Mr. Manning, are we, there's been some confusion. And I don't know if I've ever spoken to you personally about this, but are we able to remove people during their term on these committees?
During the term?
Yes.
The board is.
The board, not individually?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So do we need to address?
If we can go back to
we need
this.
to go back to Commissioner Goddard's
Well, Mr. Crosswitz
request.
is having some.
Well, his term expired, so he's
You're
not
good.
wanting to
You're
be
good.
reappointed, is what you're indicating. So
Yeah.
he's no longer serving.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Turner?
Yes, first I'd like to.
Oh, sorry, hang on. It says term expired here.
Yeah, I saw that, but I see
But it's
2020.
also is a confusion, so if I would suggest if you're going to have a discussion, then let's go ahead and do it officially. And
Yeah, this is confusing because it says expires on 2/28/22, but then at the end of his name it says term expired. So I would ask that that be a board
Okay,
motion.
let me just clarify then. He has asked me to come off this board.
Okay.
He has some health problems.
Okay.
And he doesn't feel like he'll be able to do justice, and he'd like me to replace him.
Okay.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, may I expound just a moment? The only reason I asked that question is because there's going to be times in our terms that people get on boards and they don't show up. And I think it would be prudent for us then to be able to say, they're not engaged. Let's remove them and put somebody else there. And that's the reason I asked the question, that it would take the full board approval in order to do that.
And if I could expound upon that point, that's a good point.
Up to the chairman.
If I may. The Land Development Code, it specifically says as to citizen boards that, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't have it in front of me, that if a person appointed to a citizen board misses 3 consecutive meetings without, I think it's without prior notification to, the board, then they should be removed automatically. It should happen automatically. And besides that, if somebody has missed a number of meetings, irregardless of whether they've given notice or not given notice, that should be reported to the board on a regular basis. I don't know that that's happening, but it should. It goes to your point. And you all can make determinations at that point whether you want to, keep an individual on or appoint somebody else that might be better able to serve on those particular boards in those situations.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we need to vote on Commissioner Goddard's?
The
Okay.
guy resigned,
Okay.
right? I mean, the guy called and asked you, the guy resigned, so basically, that just needs to be, the guy resigned, and Commissioner Goddard needs to find somebody to replace him.
Okay. So, okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add something to Mr. Manning and Mr. Harvey's point, when I was talking to Ms. Meese yesterday, the expression, the frustration that she expressed, and she originally said she did not want to continue, was because other people don't show up to the meeting. She said, we can't even get a simple quorum. And her initial reaction was, no, I don't want to be on there for 3 more years because it doesn't go anywhere. So I think it would be prudent for this board to, at some point, come up with some means and methods to be able to reach out to the board members and stay in contact with them and let them know that what they're doing is important, that we care about it, and also remind them they have upcoming meetings. Make sure they can be there. Maybe, if the Better Place Plan is meeting every 3 months and somebody misses a meeting, their next opportunity is 3 months down the road. Maybe it can be, the dates can be moved around, reshuffled, where you can have a quorum present. But she wanted me to express that, and she said that she'll be discussing that next week at the meeting as well.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Turner?
I think some of those things that the Land Development Code would cover would be Planning Commission and ZBOA and some of those, but a lot of them I doubt are in the Land Code, such as Animal Control Committee and things such as that. I mean, there's 22 committees, 22 citizen committees and 10 MSBU committees. So I think there's another 16 committees that are staff and commissioners, or elected officials, not commissioners. So
Actually, it applies to all citizen appointed committees.
I think it might be actually a good idea to maybe at some time in the not too distant future, because I know there are a couple of times this year that we had been asked by the chairman of a board to remove someone, and because they didn't show up to any of the meetings. And I think that we need to pass some type of a procedure for when a chairman asks that one of their people be removed, that we could review that and move forward with it if we desire to do so. So that's just my 2 cents on that one. Now, if we can get back to what we're trying to get done here. I have an at-large recommendation of John Traxler being put back on the Animal Services Advisory Committee. Would I nominate him? I nominate John Traxler because it's an at-large position.
Second.
Okay, we got a proper motion, a proper second. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Also, as an at-large position, I understand that Joseph Froelich would like to be reappointed to the Planning Commission. I would offer a motion to recommend or nominate Joey Froelich for the at-large position.
Second.
Okay, we got a proper motion, proper second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Also, I'd like to appoint as District 3 Representative Barry Hartley to the Green Belt Advisory Committee.
Okay, that needs no action. Okay.
And I think that's all I have today, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. And I do have a few appointments. One of them would have been Joey Froelich, but I appreciate you taking care of that. I would like to renominate J.R. Grimes to the Affordable Housing Committee.
Second.
And that is an at-large position, so I make that motion. So we have a proper motion, proper second. Any discussion? Can I make that motion?
Sure
As
you
chairman?
can.
I don't think the chairman.
Pass me the gavel and then you can.
There you go. Or you can make the
If they're all, I'll be happy to make the motion for you, Mr. Chairman, or you can pass me the gavel long enough to make the motion, whichever you prefer.
He wants that gavel.
Could you make, I know.
I want to beat on something.
would be honored if you would make that motion.
I
I'm
so
sure
moved,
Jerry-
Mr. Chairman.
So we got a proper motion by Commissioner Turner and a second by Commissioner Rawls. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I'd like to renominate John Newbold for the Greenbelt Advisory Committee.
Is Mr. Turbert, or is that yours?
That's me,
District 1? All right.
unless you want to do it.
It's District 1.
It's District 1
Yeah, you can, I can't do that
Can't
one,
do
pal.
that.
You got to do that
Even if I
one.
pass a gavel, you
Even if you pass the gavel, that's right.
Well, I'd like to renominate John Newbold for that committee. And then also in District 1, I'd like to renominate Mike Pegg for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. And my last one is at-large. So I'll ask Commissioner Turner to make this motion. I'd like to have him renominate Chase Barnes for the ZBOA.
I move that we nominate Chase Barnes for ZBOA.
Okay, so we have a proper motion.
Second.
Proper second by Commissioner Rawls. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Seeing none. Thank you, gentlemen, commissioners, for your appointments, because these committees are very important, and I'll share the frustrations with Commissioner Rawls. Ms. Shirley Griffin has expressed her frustration about not being able to gather a quorum for a number of meetings, and so we need people that will participate and show up to these meetings. So anyway, we'll move on to closing comments.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
Do these take effect January 1st?
Immediately.
I think it's
Immediately through whatever term they're replacing.
Okay, so this, okay. That'd be January 1st.
Well, it would be immediately for whatever term they're taking, yeah, but some of these, their term started past February, and they've been serving on there, even though their terms were up, they've been serving on there like they weren't up. We just didn't get around to doing this until lately, so.
My question gets to, there's a meeting next Wednesday for the Better Place Plan oversight. Should I tell Gabe to plan on being there, or just, okay?
Yeah, they're on it now.
They're on it.
Okay.
Yeah, those terms all started in December, so, yep, they're welcome to join us.
Can I build a fire here or something?
Okay.
Yeah, right?
Okay.
I thought it was feeling good.
All right. Closing comments, Administrator Suggs?
Yes, sir. Just very briefly, just want to say congratulations to Commissioner Larry Harvey, who was appointed unanimously on the, was it the 10th, 7th, 8th, whatever, to the Florida Associated Counties Insurance Trust Board. So we had a position that become vacant. We had a position that became vacant with Commissioner Liable this past election. So Commissioner Harvey has stepped up, submitted a letter on behalf of the county and the Board of County Commissioners with his name, and he was unanimously voted on, I think it was earlier this week. So congratulations, Commissioner Harvey. And that's all I have, sir.
Okay. County Attorney Stacey Manning?
I have nothing further, thank you.
Okay. Commissioners, I will start immediately to my left.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I could, Mr. Harvey, immediately to your left here, is asking me if it might be appropriate for his appointment to the Florida Association of Counties Trust to be ratified by this board, and I think that's a very good point. So,
You want ratified by motion?
Sir.
I move that this board ratify his appointment to the FAC board he's serving on.
Okay, we've got a motion by Commissioner Turner. We got a second by Commissioner Goddard. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I've been wanting to be on there a while, so.
Well, good for you.
One insurance to another, you understand.
Okay, Commissioner comments. I will start immediately to my left because I left him out last meeting. So I'm gonna start with Commissioner Turner.
The only comment that I would like to make today is I understand that there was circumstances today that we had to have 3 items sent to us at 5:15 yesterday afternoon to add to the agenda. So I'm gonna try to be as nice about this as possible. But about a year ago, I came in here and raised hell because I got all my stuff on Monday for a Tuesday meeting. So I would appreciate it. I understand there's circumstances this time around, but I would appreciate it if we would try very hard to not get something at 5:15 the day before we got to walk into a meeting, especially something, even though we'd had a prior presentation, especially something as important as selling $1.5 million building for the county. So that's the comment that I'm gonna make today, is I would appreciate very much if we could like hold that to the biggest minimum that we could possibly get it held to. Last comment, guys, department heads, please return your phone calls. I've asked multiple times in the past, but the people call me up or contact me all the time and said, I've contacted so-and-so or so-and-so or whatever department it may be, and I have not received a return phone call. I understand everybody's busy, but I shouldn't have to be answering phone calls because people that work here don't. I don't mind helping anybody that wants help. I don't mind starting from ground zero and moving up, but I shouldn't be having to do your damn job. So please call people back. That's all I'm asking. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Harvey?
Kind of scared to go up further.
moving right along.
I do want to thank you for the opportunity to serve on the trust. It's been one of my goals since I got here, and I really could use I think I could use my experience and expertise in that to better help Florida and this county. By saying that, though, I have been chairman of the Parks and Recreation and the Public Safety, and I would ask that, Mr. Chairman, as soon as you can find a replacement for me as those two. I've done that for a few years now and would like to move on to other things. Last Saturday, well, first let me segue into this. Big thank you to Sheriff Deloach and Colonel Wells. Colonel Wells, you step up no matter what. I've seen you at 2 in the morning helping me with butts. I've seen you the night before rubbing me pork butts. You know, you're just there whenever we need you. And I needed you December 1st because the rain was coming and we had a celebration for Christmas planned for Interlaken. And to get the word out was going to be very difficult. Social media only goes so far, but you stepped up. You brought out your display boards and you put them up. And that really went a long way to, and even let people know it was postponed. It's not going to be canceled. It's postponed to the following week. So I want to say thank you. It's so refreshing to have people like you and the sheriff in the county. We can just pick up the phone and say, I have a need. And it's understandable, and you take care of it immediately. You have those resources, and I want to say thank you. With that said, last Saturday, the Christmas celebration, 22nd annual Christmas celebration, went off wonderful. We had a great time in our little town. We had a big Christmas parade, and Santa was sitting on a beautifully restored T-Bird that was just to die for.
1957 T-Bird.
It was just gorgeous. So with that in mind, this board showed up. We threw candy, handed candy, underhanded candy to kids along the parade route. But it was so refreshing to be right in front of Santa because they really didn't see us, did they, Commissioner Guy? We let Commissioner Pickens go a little further ahead because he had a prior engagement, but they were all like, here comes Santa, here comes Santa. That's what small town's about, and that's what this community's about. And it's so refreshing for us to be a part of Melrose, Willaca, Crescent City, Palaca, Interlaken. At any time we can be there. We can't be at everything. We try. God knows we put it on our calendar, but we can't be at everything. But we do our best to get to as much as we can. And this coming Saturday, Willaca, and we'll be doing, I hope I didn't steal your thunder. And last but not least, I want to give a shout out to our administrator, Mr. Suggs. Breath of fresh air for me to have him here. As you know, as the Florida Association of Counties, I serve as the chairman of the Rural Caucus. And our challenge has been the digital divide that exists in Florida, especially rural Florida. Is there a digital divide? Yeah, kind of, maybe somewhat, yes, no, and I don't mean that flippantly. That's a big moving wheel, if you will. But yesterday, myself and Matt Reynolds and IT Director Bob Stender, along with some T-Mobile people, had a conference call. And I've asked our county administrator that we're going to try to come out with a plan that would work for Putnam County to bridge that digital divide, a plan that we can share throughout Florida. Because I've been, as my role as FAC, I kind of been tasked with that. And all the other counties are kind of scratching their heads, wondering where do we get started. Our county administrator has stepped up. We're going to start here. We're going to do it. You're the chairman. We're going to start here, and we're going to move this ball forward. So, Administrator Suggs, thank you for that, and I appreciate you and Matt's attention to this matter. And it's going to benefit the county, and it's going to benefit our state. And we'll have some document that we'll be able to take to our legislators and our elected officials and say, here's what rural Florida, Putnam County needs to be able to attract and retain and to go into the 21st century in the proper way we need to. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's the end of my comments, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Harvey. Commissioner Rawls?
Ditto. I did go to the trail opening Saturday. I wasn't able to be at the Christmas parade, and I was asked to stay around for the Blue Ways and Trails Committee meeting, and I think they had a really good turnout. There's a lot of citizens that are involved. They had a good time, had some music, and a little bit of fun and fellowship, but it was a really good event.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Goddard?
Yeah, well, of course, we had the Melrose Parade, the bike trail opening, and that was pretty cool. I cheated and I rode the bikes out there long before it was open, but I had to check it out. But they are nice, not just the trail that you can ride, but you know, it's a nice walk. But it's very, very nice. Also, the interlocking parade. What I should have done is take and put a camera on Commissioner Harvey, because he never slowed down. It was just go, 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 go. The only time he slowed down is when he actually climbed in the Jeep, and then the mouth just kept going anyway. But it was definitely entertaining. It was a very good event. This Saturday we have the Willaca Parade, which is always a good event. And I'm gonna throw in. We don't tell them enough how good they are, but Mr. Suggs, not only do you spend the time to answer my questions, and I know sometimes you're ready for me to get out of the office, but you do a very accommodating job. But also I found out how he has gone out to those who have just come back from the hospital and took them out a meal because they requested it. But I thought that was great. And Mr. Manning, again, you also take the time to sit down and explain things where I understand them, which I know is difficult at times. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goddard. I'd like to also add the trail opening. I want to thank Craig McLean and all the people who are involved in that whole process. Holly and my wife and I attended that, and I want to thank Jeff and Claudia Barnes. They purchased a property right there at the Springside Cutoff and are developing that property and built a real nice pole barn and allowed them to have the event there, and they're really excited about being property owners in Putnam County. And Holly and I actually walked the last couple of miles of the trail, and it's really nice. We look forward to cycling it soon. And I want to thank Commissioner Rawls and Commissioner Goddard. They were asked to speak for a few minutes, and they represented the county very well. And so I was honored to be there with them, and Representative Payne also. Interlocking Parade, never done that one before. A little different doing that parade at night. I've done the 4th of July parade, but it was really well attended, and to see all the kids out. It's about a 2-bag parade, so 2 bags of candy is what we threw out. And I want to thank Commissioner Harvey for his hard work. It's just amazing. You're there and everybody's going, where's Larry? Where's Larry? Where's Larry? Everybody's got a question for Larry because he's in charge and he does such a great job. And Larry does stick out in the crowd. It's hard for him to hide. And the last thing is the Willaca Parade, as everybody's mentioned, it's at noon. I will be there with my truck, and hopefully some of the commissioners will be able to join me, and maybe some of the staff. Stacy, I'm gonna ask you, the road that's right across from S&A Leisure where we stage, do you know the name of that road to put you on the spot? Okay, but it's right across from S&A Leisure. There's a field there, and that's where we'll gather probably at about 11. I think you're correct, yes. So, anyway.
Good job.
Yeah, so I knew you would know
Good.
that. So anyway, I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Our next board meeting would be on the 25th, so we have canceled that. So I just want, hopefully everybody has a great Christmas. And we do have Christmas ties on today, and I appreciate everybody wearing those. We are late to what is, I know, going to be a fabulous luncheon. Sharon Treen and IFAS over the Extension Center is hosting us for lunch, so we'll adjourn here, recess here in just a few minutes, but I want to thank Sharon and her staff for what they do for the county and for this great meal that we're going to have. We have a 2 o'clock workshop, and we have a 5:05 public hearing. So if there's no further business to come before this board, I will recess until 5:05.
Removing the requirement that generators larger than 22 kW may only be placed in residential districts if approved by a special use permit, providing for servability and providing for an effective date. Basically, it's the same as what I presented originally. This is a second reading and adoption hearing. Staff can respond to any questions you may have, but there's been no proposed changes.
Okay.
From staff.
Any questions for staff?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thought there was one thing we asked you about, the tank size, remember?
Oh, yeah, the tank size, the threshold of 2,000 gallons that are for propane that is in the code. Two things. First off, that is a separate requirement from the generator, but it could have a tie. The 2,000 gallons, the code defines as bulk storage, so that starts to get to your commercial level, and that's why we require the special use permit. There's separation issues and stuff when you get to that level of storage.
So a propane tank to run this will not be a problem for an average homeowner?
No,
okay,
no, not at all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing no questions, I'd like to open up the public comment portion of this meeting. If there are any persons wishing to speak for or against this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion of this meeting. And what is the pleasure of the board? This is the second and final reading.
I make the motion to accept it as it's written.
I second it.
Okay, we've got a proper motion by Commissioner Goddard and a second by Commissioner Harvey. Is there any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Resolution passes. Mr. Brown, CA 18002.
This is again amendment to the this is an ordinance of the County of Putnam, State of Florida, amending Article 6 of the Putnam County Land Development Code by amending Section 60518 of the Land Development Code, requiring manufactured homes that are replaced, or substantially improved to be elevated such that the bottom of the frame is at or above the base flood elevation, providing for surveyability and providing for an effective date. And again, this is just a change to bring the Land Development Code consistent with changes in the Florida Building Code.
In the state code, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Any
Any questions of staff? Okay, seeing none, I'll open the public comment portion of this meeting. Is there any persons wishing to speak for or against this ordinance? Seeing none, I close the public comment portion. And what is the pleasure of this board?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
Sorry. And I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Harvey and a second by Commissioner Goddard. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you. Staff has nothing else.
Okay. Any other further business to come before this board?
Mr. Chairman, if it would please the commission, I'd like to ask Mr. Reynolds to give an update. He and Mr. Tompkins attended the Water Management District Board meeting this morning, and he can give the commission an update from that meeting this morning.
Thank you.
I apologize. I should have done this earlier in the workshop, but just to let the commission know that this morning the St. Johns River Water Management District Board did approve the transfer of the Edgefield property, including the Dog Branch Regional Stormwater Treatment Facility, to the county. So once I have a copy of that signed agreement, I will send that to representatives at the Florida DEP, and we will be in compliance with our Basin Management Action Plan requirements, which is the BMAP requirements for the lower St. Johns Basin.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Turner?
What did they end up doing about the bond? I understand we couldn't end up buying a bond because that type of a bond that they were asking for is just not available. What did they end up doing? Did we give them a letter of credit?
Yes, sir. That's correct. We moved forward. I brought that up at the workshop several weeks ago, and we moved forward with letter of credit. Wasn't an issue, and we should be executing that tomorrow morning.
Letter of credit from us or a letter of credit from our bank?
It'd be from our bank, Capital City, yes, correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Excuse me. Do you know what they're gonna charge us for that letter of credit? Would it be the same amount or less than the bond?
It was gonna be substantially less than the bond. The bond was approximately $5,000 a year, $4,000 to $5,000 a year, and I believe
we didn't have to put up the money because of our financial security, so we're just gonna.
It's an unsecured letter of credit, correct.
Thank you.
And it's about $1,200 a year, I believe.
Okay.
Is it an irrevocable letter of credit?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. And is it good for 2 years at a time, or?
Yes.
And we pay $1,200 each time we renew it?
Yeah, actually, I believe it's $2,500, so it'd be $1,250. So it's $2,500 every 2 years that we renew it. Yes.
I think it was, if
What's
I
the
may,
value of
Mr.
that?
Chairman. I think the water management made us put that up in order to accept Edgefield, and we needed it for our BMAP points. We didn't have a lot of choice, so they asked us for a letter of credit. They asked us for a bond or a letter of credit, and I wasn't very happy about it that they asked us instead of just taking our word for it. But I'm sure, well, I know, but it's government versus government, so I would have thought they'd have done that, but they didn't. And so we ended up, I hooked them up with a bonding company, and they hooked them up with several others. That type of a bond just wasn't available. And so they ended up accepting a letter of credit from the county, and that was actually cheaper than the bond anyhow.
In my experience, usually letters of credit are required to be a lot less on the face value. Is this like 25% or?
It's letter of credit is for $125,000.
And what would the bond have been? 600 or 500?
No, the bond would have been for that.
So
we were trying to get a bond for that same amount.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And they were wanting like 2.5% if the bond was available. So it would have been that, or it would have been double that amount for a bond for the type bond they were asking for. But just for history is all I was trying to bring you up.
I appreciate it.
Right, thank you, Matt. Any other comments, concerns? Okay, if there's no further business, we stand adjourned.
That's the way you do it.